fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. There's a lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside is so hard.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and I do apologize, but my camera has completely cocked it. That's a word I haven't said for a long time, and it means it's died. I tested it 5 minutes ago, and it went all yellow like it did on Friday, but now it's completely dead in the water. That's why we're sticking with the old theme song while I talk. Okay, so I'll be going shopping later today and getting a new camera. Now, tonight I'm speaking to Rudie Rousseau, and Rudie, of course, is an expert when it comes to the Boer War, and tonight we're going to be talking about the unsavory practices, in fact the disgusting practices of the colonial British forces during the Boer War when it came to the Boer woman. And yeah, it's pretty awful what happened and what's been covered up. All right, I'm going to get Rudie on so we can get the show on the road. Here we go. Hi, Rudie.
Hello, Scott.
Hey, man, I like that gun. Is that a Mauser?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I was just busy, doing a couple of things with these British down the road.
Well, hang on, mate. I'm British. although people think I'm more Boer than British, but anyway.
Can I sing you a song just to start off?
Why don't you? Sounds good.
All right. This is such a well-known song. Good evening to all the viewers. That I'm sure if they want to sing along, they can gladly do so.
It isn't Sari Marais, is it? May Sari Marais. Go ahead.
How did you know?
I just love that song. Over to you.
All right. My Sari Marais is so ver van my hart. Ek hoop om haar weer te sien. Sy het in die wijk van die mooi rivier gewoon, nog voor die oorlog het begin. O, bring my terug na die ou Transvaal, daar waar my Sari woon. Daaronder by die milies, by die groen doringboom, daar woon my Sari Marais.
Beautiful. You know what it's been
Thank you, sir.
It's been a long, long time since we've had a jamming session on Loving Life TV. It must be a couple of years. So that's a nice, refreshing change. And you sing very well.
Scott, I am very excited. I don't know if we chatted the last time about St Helena. I went to visit St Helena.
Yes, we did.
To film. Oh, did we?
Yeah, we had a live stream on that. Yeah.
We had oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes, Scott. Yeah, it's also, a bit of, sad for me. This is the last project that I want to do for the Boer folk. After so many years, this is really something that is close to my heart. It took me 7 years to film those 55 documentaries about 55 different Boer women and children concentration camps.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, I had the privilege to meet Professor Andries Raad in Brandfort. And I did a documentary for him about Sinner van Rensburg. And while we were visiting him, we had a chat about the last documentary I want to do. And this is really a very emotional documentary. And for many years, I was looking to see if I can find the Klasie Havenga verslag, the Klasie Havenga report.
Yeah.
Now, during the reign after Jan Smuts, there was a guy called Herzog. And he then asked the women that were raped and molested on the farms by the British to come forward and to come and give an affidavit of what happened to them. So then Professor Raad said, but Rudie, this was never done. So it is such an honor, and I'm doing it out of the humble respect for women that were raped, but not only for them, for the women that were raped on the Boer farms by the British. And Professor Raad gave me this document, the Klasie Havenga verslag.
Wow.
There's close to over 50 affidavits of women that were raped with their daughters on the farms by the British soldiers. You asked me if I can just read one.
Yes, please
document.
do. Now, just for people listening, all these affidavits are in Afrikaans, so just be aware that Rudie's going to be reading in Afrikaans. Over to you, Rudie.
I am doing it with the greatest respect because this will be my last project for the Boer folk. And it says ja, onsedelike optrede en aanranding. Beëdigde verklaring geneem op die plaas Paardefontein, distrik Kroonstad van Sari Margrieta Silje. Ek het op die plaas Elandspruit, distrik Kroonstad gewoon. Op of omtrent die 23ste Desember 1901 het 2 gewapende Britse soldate van die vyand op bovermelde plaas aangekom. Hulle het toe in die huis gekom. Een van die swart Britse soldate roep my na die wahuis en ek vlug toe in die huis in een van die slaapkamers. Hy het my die kamer in agtervolg en gevra, waar is my meisie? Daar het kersse in die huis gebrand en die swart soldaat, Britse soldaat, het albei doodgeslaan. So in other words, he killed the candles. Ek het toe die kamer na buite gevlug en toe weer deur die venster die kamer in. Hy het my tot in die kamer agtervolg en my aangerand, met sy hand geslaan en my kop op my kop en sy sambok geneem en my daarmee oor sy arms geslaan. Hy het my aan die hand gevat en na buite gesleep. Hy het my op die grond vasgedruk en gepoog om my te verkrag. Aangesien my suster Aletta dit toe sien, het sy tot my hulp gekom en my uit sy hande ontsnet.
ontset. Sy het hom 'n hou met 'n mes oor die kop gegee en hy het my laat los en haar gevolg. Ek het deur die kamervenster gespring en vir my lewe gevlug na die tuin. Dit was op Stewone. Geteken SM Silje, beëdig voor my MF Reef veldkronet. Now, that was only one of the many affidavits that were written by the Boer women about the rapes that occurred on the Boer farms while the Boer were away on commando. There's terrible affidavits, and I don't want to go public with it, as well as when I'm finished with my documentary. I will have on my YouTube channel just a small part, because obviously we're considering the children not to see this, but it will be available via, anywhere in the world. If you send me your email, I will then forward it via, one of the electronic, what you call it,
like a WhatsApp
WeTransfer.
WeTransfer, yeah.
WeTransfer, so I can send it to anywhere, to any person anywhere in the world. This is the first time in 123 years that this document will now be available, to the public on video format.
Yeah.
So after I was given this, I've gave it a lot of thought, and there's a lot of questions that arise of why was there a memorandum placed on this for so many years? And when it became public in 2002, why didn't any video company or film company or any organization, film this so that we as the Boerevolk can see what really happened on the farms while the Boers were on commando? I've been busy now for the past 20 years to bring the truth, and only the truth, to the Boervolk regarding our Boervolk history. A couple of years ago, when I did my first documentary, or part of the 55 at Winburg, I've met a person there who wrote a book. Now, about 2 months ago, I've met an old farmer there, 83 years old, and he was given money in 1973 by the British, 500 pounds, just to look after the British graves. And I'm so grateful. I did a whole documentary with him. It's on my YouTube channel. And he said if he did not take some of that money, there would have been no concentration camp cemetery in Winburg. So when I did that documentary that day, about 8-9 years ago, there was a person, and this farmer that told me the story of 1973, and like myself, is very upset about, the front page of this book, because what happened to Susan Nel? She was no whore.
Now, hang on. Before we go to Susan Nel, I just want to rewind a little bit. First off, you mentioned you've got this final project you're working on, and you've got
Yes.
a document or a video that'll be on WeTransfer. I've got a comment here from a lady who is the admin for our Loving Life TV forum, and it's an amazing forum. It's literally hundreds of downloadable free PDFs, and she's written. She says, "Please let Rudie know I watch his channel and post his videos to a forum I have for him." And that's obviously on Loving Life TV. So she's actually promoting your videos through Loving Life TV. And what I would like to ask is, are you able to send... I will give you Nat's email address, but you got mine. If you can send me the WeTransfer link anyway, and perhaps I will forward it to Nat and she can download once you've actually got it all happening. And the other thing I just wanted to talk about before we talk about this Susan Nel and the shocking thing that happened there. Before we get to Susan Nel, I just want to talk about Sina van Rensburg. because
Yes.
Sina van Rensburg, of course, was they call him the prophet,
Yes.
the Afrikaner prophet, and I've just finished a series. I've actually got Adrian Snyman's book on Sina van Rensburg that was published in 1995, and
Yeah.
I actually read the entire book over 26 different videos. Each went for about half an hour. And I learned a lot during that. It was a fascinating book. What are your thoughts about that version of the prophecies by Adrian Snyman? Is he the best researcher on that, or are there others who are better?
Scott, a lot of people will disagree with me. I say so many lies were told in his book, and he went and he pasted a video on my YouTube channel. I don't know how they did it, but it is there, whereby 2 years ago when I completed the concentration camp documentaries, I always try to get hold of Professor Andries Raad, but to some circumstance I never got hold of him. So after we've cleaned Winburg concentration camp 2 years ago, my phone rang, and guess what? This is Professor Andries Raad. Rudie, you must come please see me. We must stop Adrian Snyman because of all his lies that are told. He is making him, a big liar, and he wants Sina van Rensburg to be another Nostradamus. So I was overwhelmed because, what happened to myself and my wife when I made our first documentary about Sina van Rensburg. We went to Ottosdal. We left here 4 o'clock in the morning from Rodepoort, and we arrived there about 7 o'clock. And obvious, never read any of Adrian Snyman's books. I don't want to, because the Holy Spirit warns you against, books that are, misleading yourself. And that happened to me many years ago when I read the book, The Cross and the Switchblade, where Pat Boone was playing a big part. And I went rockers. I went crazy. I don't know why, if it was devil possessed or whatever the case may be, but I torn that whole book, The Cross and the Switchblade, and I threw it in the dustbin. So as the years went along doing, a lot of Anglo-Boer War productions, I hear people talk about, Sina said this and Sina said that, etc. So we went, to the station at Ottosdal. So obviously there's nothing left. So I took out my camera and I filmed, the station and the broken, railway houses, etc. So we went down in the town and we were looking for a wimpy, just to have breakfast. So believe me, there's no wimpy restaurant in Ottosdal, but there was a Portuguese supermarket on the corner there. So we stopped, and myself and my wife got out. I had an old map book with me, no GPS. So we went into the supermarket and we asked them, do you serve coffee and sandwiches? They said yes. So I was standing next to my wife and I was just looking around, and I saw a young lady walking into the supermarket, and I saw her buying milk and the Sunday newspaper and bread. So I went up to her and I said, good morning, I'm Rudie Rousseau. Can you please tell me where's Sendelingfontein? She looked at me and she asked me why. I said, I'm here, I want to do a documentary about Sina van Rensburg. And she said to me, my father is the grandson of Sina van Rensburg.
Wow.
I stood there. Let me tell you, I even get goosebumps now. If you were here, I was so stunned, I was shocked, I just couldn't believe it.
Wow.
She then asked me, what are you doing now? I said, well, we bought some coffee and sandwiches. She asked me, don't you want to come with me to our church? And then you will meet my father, Uncle Ockert van Rensburg. So we ate our sandwiches, we went to the church, and he drove in, at the church. And he said to me, we're first going to, go to the service, and then afterwards, follow me, we'll have coffee and biscuits. And then excuse me, I will go and show you the grave of Sina van Rensburg. I'm doing tours to Ottosdal to show people, that humble person. He was such a God-fearing person. He could not write, but the only weapon he had in his hands was the Bible. So afterwards, we went to Uncle Ockert van Rensburg, and we went down to Sina van Rensburg's grave. So obvious, listening to people talking about Sina van Rensburg, I said to him, we were standing there at the gravesite. And let me tell you, I'm not a big person, size-wise. But to stand there and to know that this man went through the whole Second Anglo-Boer War without a gun.
Wow.
It's something amazing.
Yeah.
You cannot, you want to be quiet there. So I asked Willem Ockert tell me he did not want to come on camera, but eventually he agreed. And this is a documentary, it's a 3-part documentary which is available, which I can send via WeTransfer.
Please do.
I then said to him, there's rumors that, one farmer or some farmer will pick up a diamond which is as big as a sheep's head. He said to me, where did I hear this? I said, no, it's just rumors about, Sina van Rensburg. He said, my grandfather was a very respectful, God-fearing man. I then mentioned Adrian Snyman's name. He said to me, yeah, Adrian Snyman is a sensational writer. He writes a lot of crap and nonsense in his book, and that sells his book.
Right. Okay.
So when Professor Andries Raad contacted me and he said, listen, we got to stop Adrian Snyman. Now, Adrian Snyman was a journalist at the Burger newspaper. Now, you can believe what journalists are like. I'm not generalizing, but there are some of them that are, if he tells you that the sun is shining, rather go look for yourself to believe what he's saying.
Yeah, we call it fake news.
Fake news. Yeah. So I was so happy, because of this, making, Sina van Rensburg a Nostradamus. So I went to Professor Raad. Now there's nobody in the world that are more creditable regarding Sina van Rensburg as Professor Andries Raad. And I tell you why. He's written about 180 books in his lifetime. Yeah. He's a historian, he's a lawman, and he's an academic person. So Sina van Rensburg had a bosom friend called Boer Moesman.
Yes.
So Boer Moesman stayed on a farm called Langlaagte, about 160 kilometers from Ottosdal. On many occasions, he then got on his horse. Now, let me tell you, for me and for you, to travel 160 kilometers on horseback, we won't do it anymore. So he traveled to Sina van Rensburg and he stayed with Sina van Rensburg. And then as Sina van Rensburg saw the visions, he wrote it down. Mm. So during the reign of Jan Smuts, he also visited Sina van Rensburg and he actually asked Sina van Rensburg, tell me, am I going to win the next elections? And Sina van Rensburg told him no. But during that time, Boer Moesman sent some of the news and the visions Sina van Rensburg saw to the Fatherland newspaper. So Jan Smuts, believe it or not, he then sent his troops down to the farm Langlaagte to see if he can get hold of that book of Boer Moesman, because obviously he now wants to see what is going to happen in the future. And I have filmed, separately the life of Boer Moesman. So when they arrived at the farm, they dug up that whole area. And I'm sure Boer Moesman got a vision from God and he took those books and he hid it somewhere. So I'm sure on the one side he was very happy for the troops now digging up, almost the whole farm to find, the books. So he could have just go and plant some potatoes or carrots or or whatever. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Now look, just on. Yeah, please carry on. Then I've got something I want to share with you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sure. So after Boy Moosman died, Boy had only one daughter, Mevrou Nelly van Zyl, Mrs. Nelly van Zyl. Excuse me, they stayed in the region of Boshoff. So after Professor Andries Raad wrote the first book, Die Vierkleur sal weer wapper, he was now, trying to, Adrian Snyman also visited him during that time. And he said to Adrian, if you want to write anything about that's truthful about Sine van Rensburg, that's fine, but don't write a lot of nonsense. And this is the problem I have with these books. So a lot of people will agree, other people will say, I am talking the truth. So she heard that he is now busy with a new book, the last book about Sine van Rensburg, Die Waarheid van Sine van Rensburg, the truth about Sine van Rensburg. So she sent him a letter and she asked him, do you want my father's books? Now let me tell you, if that books are worth millions.
Yeah.
You can't buy that sentiment ever, but it's worth millions. So he then took the books of Boy Moosman and Adrian Snyman and the writings of Adrian's of Sine van Rensburg's daughter Anna.
Yeah.
And he now compared all the visions that Sine van Rensburg saw. So he wrote her, Professor Raad wrote her a letter and said, listen, I just want to ask you a few questions. She then went from Boshoff to Kimberley to buy those small tape recorders that used to work with the batteries and the 4-tape cassettes.
Yeah, yeah.
So the last DVD, number 9, is an audio DVD where you can hear she is now reading Professor Andries Raad's question, and then she answers him. And she said, the lies that Adrian Snyman told about her father is unforgivable. He used photos of her father, which he said in this audio cassette that it is not her father's photo. He misrepresented a lot of the visions that her father saw, and my conclusion, excuse me, is like that old TV show Dallas. The day when they shot JR, it was sort of like the end of the program. So obviously people are curious to see, what's going to happen. And that's the problem I saw, and I was explained that by Professor Andries Raad. The very last page on that book, he said, okay, like Mandela, when he passed away, he will be, at the Union buildings lying there, and then people can come see him to say goodbye, etc., which never happened. The day of the night of the long knives, we're not talking about farm murders, but you must interpret it that in your own way. So in the next book, he said, "Okay, I have now made a mistake. I thought that this is going to happen, but it's not going to happen." And he ends off his books with a lot of riddles to make you to go and buy the next book.
Yeah.
So after I have filmed the books of Boy Moosman, Professor Andries Raad asked me then to do a tour down to Ottosdal. So I invited Adrian Snyman as well as a guy called Pretorius. Now this Pretorius guy was with Professor Raad at school, primary school, etc. To come to see, and so that the public that attended this tour can ask them questions to see, now what is going on, what is truth and what is lies. On that weekend, we were about 70 people that came. We went to Sine van Rensburg grave, we went to Visioen, Koppie, etc. And that night at the lodge, Adrian Snyman never came, and Pretorius also never arrived. So, why? Did you tell the truth, or are you now, people you were caught out for not?
Yeah.
So that is why I say, with this, Die Waarheid oor Sine van Rensburg, the truth of Sine van Rensburg, it's a 9-part documentary DVD that's available where...
Sorry guys, we have a little internet issue here. Okay. Okay, you're back. We just lost you there for a second. Now look, Rudie, I just want to recognize someone who's watching tonight, and she's a lovely lady, and she's got the most beautiful speaking voice, and her name is Wanda Duplessis, and I saw her just in the side chat a moment ago. And every week we're actually putting up one of her readings, and she's actually reading from the book, Oorlog Beeld, and the writer is Mevrou P. Botha. And this is all about the Boer War, and fascinating little clips. So they go from about, a few minutes up to about 10 minutes each reading. And I think there are about 173 readings, so it's going to be a couple of years before we get through all of them. But are you aware of that book, Oorlog Beeld, by Mevrou P. Botha?
I've heard of the book, but I don't have that book.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to
tell you a fascinating story about Wanda years.
Oh, you know her?
Well, she's going to be part of this documentary.
Oh, there you go, Wanda. Breaking news here on Loving Live TV. Yeah, go ahead. So she's going to be part of the documentary. Go ahead and tell us about it.
Yeah. Yes. So, nothing happens in my life coincidentally.
Mm-hmm.
If I tell you now, I've spoken to Wanda a couple of months ago, and I said to her, I want to do my last documentary after 20 years about, the molestation and the rapes of the Boer women and children. And I asked her, would you please just read about 10 of these affidavits? And she agreed.
Yeah.
So she said, I said to her, obvious DVD is off the market now and again. I still get an order. I said, but where are you? She said to me, she's in Cape Town. I said, all right, if I have to go to Cape Town, money-wise, it's going to cost around about 10,000 because I'm in Rudie. And unfortunately, I then asked, don't you want to, promote this documentary, obvious, financially, and it's private and confidential, and we said, okay, unfortunately they can't do it because they're so busy, etc. So 2 weeks ago, I was in my studio and my phone rang, but with a very long telephone number. And we worked out the cost. It's going to be around about 10,000 rand. And that is why, if God don't want me to do this, the doors will not be open. So it's a guy from Abu Dhabi. I'm not going to mention his name, and he said no, he saw some of my documentary on YouTube, and he wants to contribute the financial part, for the work that we do. Obvious, I'm just not doing all these documentaries. We go out to Boer War sites where it's vandalized with a couple of military veterans.
Yeah.
We're small, we call the Rebelle group, and then we go and we clean it up and we paint it and we cement it, etc. So he said he wants to do a financial contribution. I said, that's fine. I gave him, my account, and about an hour later, I saw he paid in 10 rand in my account. So I sent him on WhatsApp and I said, thank you for your 10 rand. I said, if it's 10 rand or 1,000 rand, I really appreciate it. I will wait if I have to do a documentary until I have enough funds to go and film it and do whatever I need to do. He then asked me, all right, when you see that 10 rand in your account, would you please just let me know? I said, fine. So the next day I looked and I saw the 10 rand is in my account. Now, in February this year, because I have visited the Freemasons Lodge at St Helena, I am sure on YouTube or whatever are these Freemasons working. So they've hacked my bank account, they've hacked my email, and they've hacked my YouTube account. So I had to start all over. So obviously I have a new bank account, etc.
Yeah.
So I sent him and WhatsApp and I said, listen, your 10 rand is in my account. He said, thank you so much. An hour later, he sent me an SMS. And guess what happens?
He sent you the
I've never-
10,000.
He's from Pretoria, and he, donated 10,000 rand in my
Wow.
account to finish this class here, Habengracht,
Mm.
about the rapes and the molestation of the Boers. So now I have money to go down to Cape Town, where Wanda Lewis is going to read 10 of those affidavits. Obviously, it's going to be confidential because it's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
What happened to the Boers?
Well,
The Boer women and the children.
there you go, guys. Everybody who's watching, Wanda. I look forward to hearing those 10 affidavits in the future. And I take it that's going to be part of the documentary, is it, Rudie?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Wow. There you go.
Any person that wants to donate,
Yeah.
or make a contribution regarding the strip, etc., obviously I will then reward them with this. It's going to be a 3-part documentary.
Right. Now, look. How do people contact you if they do want to speak to you, or if they want to make a donation? Is there a way people can contact you?
I can give you my cell phone number.
Yeah,
which
do
is
that.
I'm in Roodepoort.
Yeah.
And my cell phone number is 082
Yep.
536
Yep.
1917.
Okay. So
082 536 1917.
that's 1917.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
When I started, to get all the facts, etc., I have on my YouTube channel asked, and I'm doing it with the biggest respect for women that have been raped.
Yeah.
If they can give me an interview, obvious I will blur out their face.
Yeah.
Because what happened to them is, there's no words that can describe after a rape. How do you carry on with your life? It's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm going to explain that, when we go on with the
Well, look,
conversation.
Just talking about that. You mentioned a while ago about Susan Nel, and she's got
Yes.
a particular experience that she went through. Perhaps you'd like to talk to us about that now.
I have obvious when I met this farmer, 84 years old, in Winburg, on the 6th, just before the 16th of June concentration camp day. He was also furious about the front page or the outside of the book. And as I said, Susan Nel was no whore. Now there's 2 books. This is the Afrikaans one, Die Boer of die Kamp Hoer. And then you get the English version, the Boer War. Now this was the original version of what happened to Susan Nel.
Right.
Then another person came and he sort of like made this like a romantic thing that happened, which I totally disagree.
Right.
So a couple of years, the writer of this book, there was a big heading in the Afrikaans newspaper called the Rapport about he now wants to film this documentary and he wants to get this girl from Benoni, that winner award, I forgot her name. He wants her. Askies? Yeah, I thought my wife was telling me who she was. I'll think of her name.
Yeah.
He wants her to play, the main role in this documentary. And I was furious, and I wrote a letter to him, and I said, she actually got the right name, for this part. But you cannot tell me that you can't find a good Afrikaans boerenmeisie to play that role of Susan Nel. So I, because doing all these documentaries for the past 2 years, a couple of years ago, without knowing it, I have visited the Marie Koopmans de Wet Museum in Cape Town. Now, a lot of people know about Emily Hobhouse, but Marie Koopmans de Wet was a superb, wonderful, wonderful lady. Her museum is still in Cape Town, in 23 Strand Street, in the midtown of Cape Town. And she collected a lot of clothes for the women and children that were in the concentration camps. While I was filming that, I never ever thought that reading this book, and I always wanted to know, where is this cave? Does it really, exist? That this book, The Boer War, and what happened to Susan Nel, will have a big part. When I read and I saw what happened with Susan Nel and how Marie Koopmans de Wet met her in the Cape Town station, I was stunned. I just couldn't believe it. So the story of Susan Nel is she was in a concentration camp in Winburg. And for the people that want to know, I did a tour about 2 months ago. Over 30 people arrived in Winburg, so I explained the whole story. And we went down to the cave, which is something else. It's an experience. Reading a book is one thing, but to go to the actual site where it happened is totally different. Yep. And you also understand, better of the distances, how far Noah actually, had to take her down to the cave so that when he saw she's still alive. So what happened to Susan Nel on Old Year's Eve? She had a friend, which is buried there in the concentration camp in Winburg. And she was sick, so she went to a granny's tent to go and get some medicine for her friend. But there was a curfew. Certain time, in the afternoon, you're not allowed to leave your tent. Obvious, not light, lighting up a candle, because the British were scared that the Boers will come and raid, the concentration camp to get the Boer women and children. So when she went to a granny's tent, there was a joiner that saw her by accident. So he went to the British officers. There were 2 of them, and he reported her to the British officers. They then said to him, go and fetch her. So obvious, pulling and grabbing and hitting and kicking her. They arrived at the 2 British officers' tent. Now, obviously, it's Old Year's evening. They had some rum and whatever and drink. And, she was young. And so this British officer said, gee whiz, but this is a good-looking girl. And eventually it happened that this joiner took both her hands. Now, those beds in the old days used to have a frame at the back.
Yeah.
So he put her hands through that cradle there at the back. And both of these 2 British officers raped her.
Oh, no.
You believe, raped her. What goes through a woman's mind if something like this happens to her?
Yeah.
While one of them were raping her, she bit a part of his ear off. So obvious, he was very angry, and he took one of those rum bottles and he smashed it on her head, and obvious trying to kill her.
Yeah.
And he thought that she is now dead. So he told this joiner, go get the person that normally cleans out the concentration camp and dump the body there at the dumping site. It was now obvious night. So while they were putting the body of Susan Nel on this cradle going down to the dumping site, somehow she fell off. Now the person that did that did not notice that she fell off the wagon or whatever or the car that she was on. So the black man, Noah, that cleaned the concentration camp, he was there, and when he came and he saw, but there's a body lying in the passage, he stopped and he saw that she's still alive. And he took her, and from there to the cave, obviously you can go over the mountain there, but if we go there with a visit, it's about, say, 3 kilometers, more or less. So he took her and he hid her in that cave, looking after her, going into the veld, getting rabbits or whatever they need to eat, or the food that are rotten that they don't eat at the campsite. So him and his wife looked after Susan Nel. And eventually, going around in this concentration camp, he picked up, maybe a pound, money here
Yeah.
and there. And, he doesn't know the worth because I think, he did not go to school, etc. But eventually, with all this money that he picked up, he then met the guy that used to use the post coach that were traveling from Bloemfontein to Winburg, then to Kroonstad, etc. And he made friends with this. He called him Mafuta. And he said, listen, I have this money. Would you please just help this English girl, to get out of the camp? She needs to go to her family. So Susan Nel, after she recovered, and I will show the people the well where she bathed, etc.
Wow.
She then went on this postcard, this post wagon down to Bloemfontein. While she was traveling, she met a photographer, and in her condition, speaking Afrikaans because she's originally from Heilbron. They started, or he started to have a conversation. But I mean, I'm sure she was so frightened to speak anything because he might notice or hear that she's Afrikaans.
Mm.
So she took out the name, or she took the name of her friend. She unfortunately passed away. She didn't get the medicine she needed to recover. So she went to Bloemfontein, and then from Bloemfontein on the train all the way to Cape Town. When they arrived at Cape Town, they got out of the train, and her experience and what happened to her must have been something else. So on the station, guess who was there? Marie Koopmans de Wet. So Marie Koopmans de Wet saw this pale girl, and she went to her and said to her, your little girl, you look so pale, is there something wrong? Please come with me. So she took her to the bathroom, obviously giving her something to eat and so on. And then she asked her, but do you have relatives, or who's this man? And by coincidence, Marie Koopmans de Wet recognized the photographer, and she said to him, listen, I am going to take Susan Nel under my wings. I need somebody to help me to get the clothes and stuff, transported or ready to be transported to the concentration camps. So it's a fascinating story. If you're ever in Cape Town, go visit Marie Koopmans de Wet.
Yes.
Please put a rose or something there, just to remember the good deed that she did to Susan Nel.
Yeah.
So Susan Nel then stayed with the Marie Koopmans de Wet, and after a while, she recovered. But then one day she told Marie Koopmans de Wet what happened to her. So she had close friends in Cape Town, and they had sort of like a trust. So one day they called in Susan Nel. She always used to wear a hat, because when that British officer hit her with a rum bottle, he smashed her face. So there was a big scar, etc. And I could only find so far one photo of Susan Nel. So obviously, she was, not feeling too well, to come in the open without a hat, etc. And then one day they were sitting at a dining table, and Marie Koopmans said, please take off your hat. And then she saw this big scar on her face. And then Susan Nel burst out in tears, and she told her, what happened. So they had a trust, getting money, etc. And they said to Susan, listen, you're such a good person. We want to send you to Holland to go and study for a nurse. So off, Susan Nel went to Holland, and then she studied for a nurse. So after she got a degree or whatever, her qualifications, she then went to England. So working with the superintendent of the hospital, he then took her to one of the wards one day. And as they walked into one of the bedrooms, she saw, his face was half covered. She saw, but this guy, it was now during the First World War, his face was covered, but one of his legs is missing. And as she went closer, she recognized one of the British officers that raped her. Now, can you imagine how she felt when she saw her rapist?
Oh, wow.
And what went through her mind and her emotions? You know, I'm sure the first knife that was lying there, she would have taken it and killed him. So eventually, you know, it was now part of her duties to go from ward to ward and to see that the patients are looked after, etc. And then one day, he was smoking a lot. She came into the room and he wanted to have a lighter or maybe matches or something. And she backmouthed him and he went berserk. So she went out, obvious, you know, to recover a bit. The next day when she arrived there, she went to that room and she saw, but the bed was empty. So she went to the office and she was then told he hanged himself in one of the bathrooms.
Wow.
After that ordeal in England, she went to, I think it's Taiwan, where a lot of women were raped by the Americans during the war, etc. And she started to be a compassionate friend to these women that were raped. And the general of that army, you know, he was then told, listen, we got to get this woman somehow, you know, sorted out because she's influencing all these women that were raped, etc. So she was called, she was caught and then she was court-martialed in a court of law. And this general was sitting there and now he's sort of like the advocate and then he asked her, you know, a lot of questions. And then one specific time, she then told him her story of what happened to her. And that is why she's an activist for the women that's been raped. So, you know, after he heard her story, he adjourned the court. So she went outside and she asked, you know, one of the soldiers there, you know, she would please like to have a personal interview with this general in the afternoon, if it is possible. So she came back to court and she waited and waited. And the general had, you know, a soldier looking after, you know, all his orders and stuff that he needs to do. And he said to Susan Nel, ma'am, I'm sorry that you can't have an interview with a general because he shot himself.
Right. Now.
So.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Both of them, and look what happened to her at the end. And this is not a storybook.
Yeah.
This is the truth.
Wow.
It's not a make-up story.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's some horrible things that happened during the Boer War. Absolutely shocking. Look, I've got a couple of messages for you from Wanda in the side chat. And she says, dis vir my 'n groot voorreg en plesier en ek gaan dit met die grootste respek en empathie lees. And she also says, dankie Scott en Rudie dat julle dit moontlik maak vir my voorlesing gehoor kan word. That she's talking about the little clips that I put up every week. But there you go. So I take it you guys are in phone contact or email contact?
Yeah, we phone one another now and again.
Right.
You know, on WhatsApp. I must just compliment you, Scott. If I was a teacher, I would have given you 10 out of 10 for it.
Well, I did live in South Africa for a long time, although my Afrikaans was never great. But I can follow what people say in Afrikaans. Now,
Yes.
okay, now I've got a question here from Elmy Fivepence, and he says, where does the song Simbamba originate from? Now, I've never heard of Simbamba.
Well, I actually wanted to start, you know, the program tonight by singing. Can I sing it for you?
Please do, yeah. And you can tell us where it comes from.
And when I was a child, and many of us, when we were children, we used to sing this, you know, out of, we call it volle bors. You know, we really enjoyed singing this, never knowing of, you know, the meaning of the song. It goes like this. Zing bamba, mama se kindjie, zing bamba, mama se kindjie, draai sy nek om, gooi hom in die sloot, trap op sy kop, dan is sy dood. Now that song, and I get cold shivers, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
My last documentary I'm doing about the rape and molestation is going to be an eye-opener of how we have been lied to by professional people
Yeah.
and by this one institution in Bloemfontein. And not that and I don't want to generalize. It's a beautiful museum. Whoever, look after the artifacts and stuff, it is so nice. But what I have discovered is totally, the biggest lie that we have been told since 1913 when this Boer Memorial, the Women Memorial, was opened in Bloemfontein. Now I am sure I'm going to be cursed by this, and I'm sure they're getting all the law people now together to make a case of what I am now saying. And I'm saying this because I have the facts. And if they can't give me the facts, let me tell you, it will be an eye-opener for mede-volksgenote, for fellow Boer women and children. Now, I have in my possession what happens, during the making of the 55 documentaries about the Boer women and children concentration camps. I have discovered 2 concentration camps. There's no mention of it in the archives. Sutherland, a lot of people will know Sutherland, that town that gets so cold during the winter time. There past, close to Maatjiesfontein, and Magogwe here by Mafeking. Now, when I've met a person that were a farmer close to that, and I phoned him once and I said, do you know anything about the concentration camp at Sutherland? He said to me, no, giving me another number, etc. And eventually I got hold of Susan Nel. I'm not sure if he's still alive, but he was a captain in the South African police force, and he looked after John Foster and Hendrik Verwoerd. Now, there's a lot of people that are, that they like Hendrik Verwoerd a lot. But when I did an interview after, in his bookshelf, I then discovered this book, Concentratiekamp Sterftes. And it was written by Celeste Reynolds. Now, I've told her that, if she looked at your channel tonight, she will then see my conversation with you regarding this book. I discovered this book in his shelf. So I went to Cape Town and I did an interview with Celeste Reynolds. And I looked at, this documentary of her yesterday as well, to get all my facts of what really happened at the Boer Memorial in Bloemfontein. So she mentioned last night that Hendrik Verwoerd, during his reign in the 1960s, he said to any history writer or writers of books that you don't write anything about the concentration camps because it will just alter the hate between the Afrikaans and the English people. I don't have any respect for Verwoerd anymore. The little I had is now gone. So I then read this book. Now, Celeste Reynolds, if you look at the program tonight, I'll take my hat off. Because there's only a few people that will stand up for the truth. Now, she's a little lady from a place called where Senior van Rensburg, he lived close by Lichtenburg. And it took her 5 years for her investigation in the archives of how many Boer women and children really died in the concentration camps. And what an amazing little lady, and her work that she did for 5 years. She then discovered that there's a CD, in this book. She actually, after my interviews, wrote something for me. But on the side, I've just taken it off. There was a CD with 34,000 Boer women and children names.
Wow. They were all killed.
So
they all died.
that were killed in concentration camps. And from 1913. We were told by this liberal Afrikaners that there was only 26,000 Boer women and children killed in the concentration camps.
Only.
And what she said in an interview makes really sense to me now when I'm doing this rape and molestation of the women and children. When the 100-year celebration of the Anglo-Boer War, came about, the British wanted to buy the Boer Memorial in Bloemfontein. So why would they wanted to buy the Boer Memorial in Bloemfontein? Only one reason: they wanted to get rid of the evidence.
Yeah.
That's the only conclusion I came about.
Yeah.
So during my visit at Professor Raad Filming Cine van Rensburg, I then said to him, Prof, do you know Celeste Reinhold? He said to me, yes. I said, but you are now on the board of the Women Memorial in Bloemfontein. Why don't you want to accept this 34,000 names? And he gave me such a long story. Why not? Now, for her to get her degree, she worked under a professor at the Northwest University, the same position as Professor Andries Raad. So why didn't they want to accept the 34,000 names? Because they don't want us to know the truth.
Yeah.
So I did the interview with Celeste Reynolds, and I've put it on my YouTube channel. And a couple of months ago, a friend of mine, which is now part of this documentary, Ernest Kotze, of Kotze, from Alberton. Man, Ernest, I'll take my hat off. You are really a Boer investigator. What he discovered for me is going to be an eye-opener for the Boer folk. So we went down to the Boer Women and Children Memorial in Bloemfontein. And to attract attention in the foyer where you arrived there at the reception, there were some public people there, and the lady at the reception, I spoke in a very loud voice, why do you keep on lying for us regarding our history? And immediately I got attention, and she went upstairs, and I heard footsteps. Not going to mention their names now, but if this case goes further, I will mention their names because I have the proof. When I'm going to start to film this documentary this coming Saturday, the 26th of August, I will mention their names on this documentary. And this guy, he saw me and he said to me, yeah, I've seen you somewhere. I said, yes. I said, you phoned me once and said, now I see any cemetery, as a concentration camp cemetery. I said to him, why? He said, yeah, where did you get the idea Sutherland is a concentration camp? I said, all right, do you have the book of Eben Nel, this police captain that looked after Foster and Verwoerd? He said to me, yes. I said, go and look at page 464. Now, why write this book about the Kaapse rebelle? People send him messages and letters, etc. And then they mentioned in these letters, about the concentration camp in Sutherland. And I wish I can get money to go and fix it up, because it's been so neglected. So why would there not have been a concentration camp in Sutherland, whereby at Maatjiesfontein, I'm sure you were there, some other...
Sorry, guys, we just... You'll
so,
be back.
we had a chat, and I said, but, why don't you accept... excuse me?
Sorry, we lost you for a second
Scott?
there. Yeah, we lost you for a second there. Now, just talking about Maatjiesfontein, is that near Kimberley?
No, Maatjiesfontein is just after Laingsburg.
Okay.
On your way to Cape. Yes, you get Laingsburg, then you get Maatjiesfontein, then you get Touwsrivier. It's en route to Cape Town.
Right.
To Worcester.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at Maatjiesfontein, there were over 10,000 British troops. So why would they not have gone and, burned down the farms in that area and put the women in concentration camps? So from Sutherland, a kilometer before Sutherland, these women on those farms in that area were then kept in a concentration camp And when you go from Maatjiesfontein to Sutherland, it's 100 kilometers. There's only one stop street. Just after the stop street on the left-hand side, that's the cemetery. I made a documentary about Sutherland as well. So when we stopped at this Boer memorial, I had my camera with me and I walked and I saw all these names. And I said, yes, I haven't been here for some time, but there's a lot of more names now than there used to be. And then this personnel from the Boer Women Memorial in Bloemfontein then said, we have now, put up plates, etc., with the 34,000 names.
Wow.
So my question is, and this is going to be part of my documentary.
Yeah.
Since 1930, how many staff, how many professional people that you had here at the Women's Memorial? Why did you were paid to do a job? My only conclusion is that you are told to say what you have to say and nothing else. So why after 1913, only now, you did not want to accept Celeste Reynolds' 34,000 names? My friend Ernest then went onto their website. It would have been, completed till now, since January this year, and still there's nothing. So we have been lied. There's much more women and children killed in these British murder camps than what we have been told over the years.
Now, one of the people who's lied is that Lutheran missionary.
Yes.
You want to tell us about that?
Yes. So after, my constant, documentaries regarding the lies of some of these liberal Afrikaner museums, etc., that we, the sad thing is, and I'm not, what is the right word? Don't say, that a professor is not telling the truth. But, what they wrote in their history books, were they really Boere from the heart? Or were they only in the right position to go to the archive to say, I just want to write a book about the Boer War history of South Africa? Walking into, the archives as a professor, I am sure the staff there overrun their feet to say, hello, professor, can I help you? Prof, I have now discovered this and this. Have you seen this, etc.? Whereby me and you, a normal, just public person, I'm very reluctant to say that, I don't think we will get the help like what they get.
Yeah.
So many of these history books are not written out of the heart. It's written to make money. Now we're even getting now to serious stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
So here's a book of Emily Hophouse.
Oh, what a woman. What a woman.
What a woman.
Yeah.
Huh?
Amazing.
And it's such a pity. Why, for so many years, did not really say anything about Marie Koopmans de Wet? Why did they keep quiet about her? Now and again, you only hear. And she did also wonderful work for the women and children in the concentration camps. So, Emily Hophouse, visited Springfontein on many occasions. And many occasions, and even in this book, she stayed with this Sandrock missionary from the Lutheran Church in Springfontein. Now, at Springfontein, there were over 3,000 Boer women and children in this camp. Can you imagine? In those fields, during the winter time, there's no trees, no firewood, no proper toilets, no bed. 20 to 25 persons used to sleep in those bell tents without any blankets. There's two professors. I'm going to put them in my documentary. The one of them was a professor from Bloemfontein University, and he said the British did not mean, to kill, so many, or not. That was not his words. The British did not mean that so many women and children had to die in these concentration camps. Can you believe such a lie? when you read these affidavits, how they were raped and molested, and you get a person with that type of education to say the British did not mean that. Of course, yes, the British meant, because when gold and diamonds were discovered in South Africa, they said, we must get rid of these Boer folk for once and for all. Winston Churchill also said this. Now, a person, I've never in my life could understand the difference between a Boer and an Afrikaner. But let me tell you, every day I see this difference between a Boer and an Afrikaner.
Yeah.
So, I was a radio announcer with Radio Pretoria many years ago, and one day a person phoned me in the studio and he said, do I know Oom H.S. van Blerk? Now, he was an Afrikaans writer. He had a bokkie baard, small beard with pot, with beautiful blue eyes, etc. And many people don't understand why the 1914 rebellion actually started in South Africa. I just want to give you just a little bit feedback. Those young boys that survived, that were lucky to survive the concentration camps, were now youngsters, 17, 18 years old. When the First World War started, England then said to Jan Smuts, we need some men to come and help us fight. And then he wanted to get those young boys that lost their mother, father, brothers and sisters in these concentration camps. And that is why the 1914 rebellion started. Yeah. So I then went to do an interview with H.S. van Blerk. Now, his mother and his sister were in the Batuli concentration camp. Over 5,000 Boer women and children were there. It's terrible if you walk there and you saw, what happened and the area, etc. So after my interview with H.S. van Blerk, I said to him, Uncle, thank you so much. And as I wanted to walk, he said to me, Rudie, just wait. And he went to his office, and he came out with this book. And I call this the Boer concentration camp Bibles, the Boer concentration camp Bible. There were actually 2 books. And he looked into my eye, those beautiful blue eyes, and he was about 73 years old, and he said to me, Rudie, you have work to do. And never in my life I thought that, what an emotional journey for me, to do this. So while being on the Radio Pretoria, the old Radio Pretoria, I then talked about, a lot about the concentration camps. And then one morning I received a letter by Willie Spies of Solidariteit, where I am now prohibited not to speak anything about the concentration camps anymore. So I said to Willie a couple of months ago on Facebook, you will read your letter in the book I'm writing about the truth of what happens. And this is the difference between Boer and Afrikaner. So Willie is an attorney, and he must take note. So I then started off, and this is how, sometimes I get, questions of how do you, why did you go film all these concentration camps? There must be a reason. And that was my reason when I resigned from Radio Pretoria. And I wanted to know, but what were we not told about the concentration camps? So in this book, here's all the concentration camps. I discovered by shock yesterday, I thought there was 126. It was actually 141 concentration camps with the good work Celeste Reynolds did. So this is, all the names, the places of the different concentration camps, how many people were in these camps, etc. Letters that the women wrote about the conditions in these camps, and so forth. 10 years ago, I'll come back to this. I'll show you the other book now. 10 years ago, when I filmed this documentary at Springfontein, where we stayed at the guest house, this book by Blackie de Swart was lying on the, and it's called 963 Days at the Junction. So this is a day-to-day.
That's a great book.
Everyday occurrence of what happened at Springfontein.
Yeah.
So I did not know about the graves of the graves that belonged, to the babies on the one part of Springfontein. So Blackie then showed us this, and I left and I filmed the rest of the concentration camps all over. But in my mind there was something not right. So 2 years ago, before I went to St Helena, I had to get all my facts and stuff ready. So I contacted Rudie Rousseau. Now, this lady worked 30 years for the Boer Memorial in Bloemfontein. She had a master's degree in history. What a woman, what a nice person, what a friend. And I'm sure people that did know Rudie Rousseau will say, the same. So, when she went on pension, she stayed on a farm in Wolmaranstad. And as I said, nothing coincidentally happens to me. God have a reason why I was given this task to fulfill. Because I, like in Afrikaans, ek het nie 'n bang haar op my kop nie. I don't have any. I'm not scared at all. Now, the famous words of Professor Andries Raad, if you can show the court the truth and you got the facts right, put it in your DVD in front of it. So I went with my wife. We went to this farm, and there we've met Rudie Rousseau. I did an interview with her regarding, the one side about black concentration camps, etc. So after I did my interview, I then said to her, Rudie, please tell me, those 37 baby graves that are in Springfontein, are those the babies of the Boer women that were raped? She said yes. She had the facts in her hands.
Oh, no.
I left it. So my last visit with the Boer Memorial in Bloemfontein, I was actually shocked. These three personnel, I will mention their names. They can get their attorneys if they want to, because Ernest will be my witness. And why I, in the reception area, made a loud noise of why didn't I wanted to accepted Celeste Reynolds 34,000 names. Now they have. So we were called into a conference room, and we were made coffee. And then I said, but, tell me the truth about Springfontein. I did an interview with Rudie Rousseau, and, she told me that those were the babies of the women that were raped by the British. Oh, no. They like one of these canaries, like parrots in a cage. All three of them. Yeah, you can't believe Rudie Rousseau, what she is saying. I said, but I am shocked. She worked here for 30 years. She was part of the production of Arende. How many of you saw Arende? What a series about the Boer, prisoners of war. I was very shocked. They took us around, after our meeting and coffee, and I looked and I wanted to see if there's any mention about the rapes and molestation of the women and children. They will probably go and do it now, but I could not see anything, but I just kept quiet. So Ernest wanted me to take me on a tour, which I did for St Helena. So we arrived at Springfontein, and I showed him the graves of the babies, etc. And we slept over at one of the lodges there one night. But before we left the Boer Memorial, they gave us each a book. So I was in my room, and then Ernest said to me, am I sleeping? I said, no. He said, can I just show you something? The lies of the Boer Women Memorial in Bloemfontein. See this book? Are you there, Scott?
Yeah. The Oorlogs Museum. Yeah.
See this book? Guess what? We were told that you can't believe everything that Rudie Rousseau said. And I said, I am shocked. She worked here 30 years.
Yeah.
Guess what? In front of this book is thank you, Elria Wessels, for your fascinating and hard work here at the Boer Memorial.
Wow.
Huh? We were so light, by these Afrikaner museums.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I then started my investigation.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention his name, this specific professor. In one of his books, it's now said that this missionary Shamrock of the Lutheran Church, the Lutheran Church maybe was part of the Roman Catholics, and their beliefs was that if he had a congregation and the woman, she was pregnant and she gave birth, and he did not get to that woman, to bless the baby, and the baby dies, that baby goes to hell. And there's no proof in these books, and I want to know from there, give me the proof. You are all blaming, on this missionary Sandrock. Those 37 babies that are lying in Bloemfontein are the women that were raped by the British on the farms. If they're not going to give me the evidence, and I said I am willing, if you give me the evidence, to say I have made a mistake, I apologize. If you want to sue me, go ahead.
Yeah.
Coming back to Blackie de Swart, 963 days at the junction. I just want to read just a small part
Go ahead.
of what he said.
Go ahead.
Now, this is a day-to-day occurrence at, what happened at Springfontein with those 3,000 Boer women and children that were in that camp.
Right.
And he said, looking at the dates of the death of these 37 children, one sees that they passed away between 2nd April 1901 and 17 August 1902. This contradicts Raad, that wrote many books, and Louw's statement above. What could be the true is that Sandrock in fact did all the burials in the concentration camps, a fact shown by Emily Hophouse. When she returned to South Africa in 1903, she wrote to Lady Hophouse from Bloemfontein on the 10th of June. As we passed the site of the camp, I saw nothing was left of that big canvas town that were rows of white stones marking the streets, etc. Mr. Sandrock, having buried 650 of those Boer women and children that was in that camp. So, another booklet was written about Springfontein. So, now this professor is also saying that you cannot believe all the things that you hear from Elria Wessels. So in front of this book, he just want to say, Elria Wessels, thank you so much for your hard work and your help.
Wow.
Now they turned against Elria Wessels, which passed away, putting the blame on Sandrock.
Yeah.
So this interview I did with Elria Wessels will be shown in this documentary, where she said in her own words, those 37 graves were the women that were raped by the British soldiers on the farms.
Yeah.
It's a sad affair of how we have been lied to. They now have a big monument. I've given you some of those photos of those graves, etc. I don't know if you want to show your
We'll have a look
viewers.
at those now, if you like. But before we do,
Yes. Yes,
I just want to say we've got about 80 people watching on YouTube. We've got about 400 people watching through our main platform, which is lovinglivetv.com. And I just want to remind people that if they want to contact Rudie, his cell phone number, I hope you got a pen ready. But Rudie's cell phone number is 082 536 1917. That's 082 536 1917. Now, Rudie, I want to share with you a very personal story. And that is, I went to a boarding school called Michael House, which is in KwaZulu-Natal. And we had an Afrikaans teacher. He was an old guy. He must have been about in his 60s, I guess. But he was so conservative. He was, if you put a foot wrong, boy, were you in trouble. But he was the most amazing narrator. I remember we had, for some reason, we had 2 Afrikaans classes, just one after the other, with him. And he said, children, today we're going to do something different. I'm going to tell you a story. And for those 2 classes, nobody got up at the break. Everybody just was riveted in their seats. And he spoke in Afrikaans, and he told the story about this what appeared to be a ghost on the way from where they went from the farm to the school, because there was a thing moving in this house. And it turns out to be wallpaper. But he told the story over 2 hours, or it was close to 2 hours, and everybody was riveted. And I have to say that you remind me of that fellow. You know, the way you tell your stories, you've got this wonderful way of actually presenting the facts. And right on the side here, I can tell you, everybody's saying, yeah, these are the facts. This is history. We need to know this information. Now, I've got a question here from Petruza, who says, why will this be your last project?
Scott, the sad thing is, there was a WhatsApp group not so long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and this was called, concentratiekamp herlewing. In other words, concentration camp relive.
Yeah.
And, I got to a stage where, a lot of these guys, they did nothing for the Boer folk history. And, I'm now 61 years old. So you get to a stage where you don't want to have people tell you, yeah, you're a beggar. Because if we have to clean up, I can show people, they must go and look at my YouTube channel, what myself and a couple of my friends, which is military veterans, Lucas, Klopper, couple of these guys.
Yeah.
We go far out Western Transvaal in the veld. We go and we revamp, forgotten Boer monuments, etc. Now to go and do this, I work for myself. So when my YouTube channel was hacked, my income went, it was just gone. So I had to start after 10 years all over.
Yeah.
So it's difficult if you don't have a sponsor. So I have to go and say on my Facebook page, Vergete Britse Moordkampe in South Africa, we've got this project. The place looks terrible. We will go and clean it on your behalf, but we need funds to go and do this. So my second name is Rudie Bedel, Rudie Beck. Because what people don't realize, this is not only my history, it's yours as well.
Yeah, exactly.
My generation now are the last persons that can really tell the truth regarding this discovery of Springfontein and those graves.
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to do it now, this will be forgotten. And I'm doing it for those Boer women and children, and those women that were raped with their daughters. Because it was so lousy for them, to get, enough to go and say, this happened, to me, just to say, all right, thank you for your affidavit. It's been put in a file and it's been, nobody can look at, at this for 50 years. So they never had a chance to speak the truth of what happened, what the British did. If you go on a YouTube channel and you go and see what Britain was like in the 1900s, it was a slums. Britain were on the verge of bankruptcy. Many of those soldiers that came to South Africa had syphilis, a sexual disease. Can you imagine being in the veld for weeks and months, and now you get to a farm, there's this beautiful Afrikaans Boer lady, and now, she was raped by them because they could do what they wanted. Otherwise, they were then transported, to the concentration camps. What is so sad is, this specific professor, I have sent him a voice note. I was actually shocked how he turned with these 3 personnel at the Boer Memorial in Bloemfontein against Ria vessels by telling the truth. Is this, what we want, or do we really want the truth? And I said to him, once I've, completed this documentary, I will then send you this documentary. And I will give you a week to show me the truth, that what I am telling now about those 37 graves, according to Ria vessels, if you don't do this, I will then make this public. I have a Boer heart. I am a Boer. Our people in this country, fought for this country. So many children died. So many women, died in these concentration camps. If they did not die in this 141 concentration camp, it would have been definitely a different story in this country. Emotionally, to do this, I have actually called my wife in this morning, and I said to her, I'm dedicating this last work for the Boer folk, for those women that never had a chance to tell their part of this forgotten file of the Klasie Havenga to you, because for 34 years, when times were rough, when I wanted to complete those documentaries about the concentration camps, she silently, took out personal financial loans for me to complete this. This was an order from God to do this, to not to leave one stone unturned by getting the truth to the Boer folk. The lies that we have been told by these liberal Afrikaners will not go unnoticed. I can tell you this. I had many thoughts of, say there is now a court case, etc. I will go, I will stand there as a truth as the rest of the Boer heroes, Joopie Fourie, Gideon Skeepers, General de Wet. But the truth will set you free. Because if you look at the dates of these children, these 37 children, and you go to the big cemetery, you will find the same ages of children buried in the big cemetery. They thought they could get away with this lie. For Sandrock, for them to accuse Sandrock to get away with his lies and putting up a little memorial there, etc., is so unfair. For him doing his work as a missionary, against 3,000 Boer women and children, it was impossible. There were 3 Afrikaans preachers there. Why didn't they stand up against Sandrock It's all lies. My friend Ernest en Ludwig Meiberg en Lucas Klopper en Jaco Diedriks en Andries, ek het jou van vergeet, my vriend. You know, we're a small group of rebels. If I've got one of your names, I apologize. It wasn't, intentionally. Ernest wrote a letter to the archives in Germany where he asked them, was there any in your theological studies anywhere that if your missionary or your preacher did not get to a woman that gave birth, that child is going to hell? They said never. Where did this professor get that information? And it's not definitely stated in these books. The lies that we are now told by the Afrikaners. I have kept all his voice recordings as proof. And if he doesn't come alight with the truth to show me, I will go ahead and make this publicly. It's now over a week that I have not received any message or any correspondence from him. We all make mistakes. But this is for those women that could not speak of how they were raped and molested by these British soldiers. Every year, Germany get a smack in the face of the so-called Jewish concentration camps. Why have the world turned a blind eye of what happened here in South Africa? Why? There's not a lot of us, and I'm not saying I've made many mistakes in my life, but this last, I don't know other word as a project, but this last one will be my last to bring the truth to the Boer folk. If there's other things that they need me to do, obvious, I will carry on. But I'm going to close this down as the most emotional journey that I could have ever given to any person to go and film, because when you walk into a concentration camp and you take your camera, you're not making a movie. You are here with reality. So many children died because of hunger, because of sicknesses. Oma Swart in Standerton, she lost 8 of her children in 2 weeks in that concentration camps. The concentration camp was put next to the Vaal River, and in the winter time it goes to minus 14 degrees. And these professors say, oh, the British did not mean, to kill these women and children. It was unfortunate, some Moorman, to say that at least. The truth will set you free.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, Rudie, that the lady who asked the question said, salute, Rudie, we women are all now in tears. And Lynn says, Rudie has a heart of gold, he's a legend. And there are a lot more other comments like that. Now, Rudie, we talked about... Yeah, go ahead, please, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. There was a TV show called Die Kat.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is the most liberal Afrikaner magazine that you can get. I discovered this at one of the bookshops the other day, and I was so shocked to see, they are also looking for the truth. And in this book, just want to show you the front picture. Man, what a story. This is a picture of a woman. That's the heading.
Yep, okay.
I just want to see if I can show you this.
Oorlog beteken... Can you read that to us, Rudie?
It says, die verskrikking wat verswyg word. Oorlog beteken dood en verwoesting en chaos. Maar die geweld en verkrachting wat teenoor vroue gepleeg word dikwels toegesmeer soos Charney Creer se soektog daarmee in die Anglo-Boereoorlog en so dit aan die lig gekom. I forgot this guy's name. He was a doctor at Fort, with the Boers,
Yeah.
and he said in the Second Anglo-Boer War, 35% of Boer women and their daughters were raped by the British. There's a story, this girl was 9 years old in Colenso. She was raped by 11 British soldiers.
Oh, no.
And she died of the injuries.
Oh, no. That is
Susan Nel.
Yeah.
There's many of these stories. In what's so fascinating as well, doing that documentaries over a 7-year period, there's no other concentration camp with 37 or 10 graves separately from that concentration camps. That is why, we have been lied to.
Mm.
And the other lie is there's no adults been buried with those 37 babies.
Yeah.
And this professor said, one other reason might be that the concentration camp cemetery at Springfontein, there's no more space left. I'm going to film this, and for you, the public, to see how we have been lied to. There's ample space. After 123 years, there's more than enough space. I think out of compassion, because he was a man of God, this Lutheran church, and I even spoke to the bishop in Cape Town, and I said, was there ever in the learnings of the Lutheran church that story, if one of your missionaries get to or don't get to that baby and the baby dies, he or she will go to hell? He said, never. He said the Lutheran church always accepted Luke and Matthew in the Bible, where that child, although we're not God, we cannot say because of the rape that happens, what will God do? But a child is born innocently. He doesn't have any sin.
Yeah.
35% of those women were raped.
Sure.
Why did the previous Afrikaners, not go and do, the honest thing by telling people how the women and children were raped, but it was kept in a file. And the truth, again, will set you free. When I go I'm going to be in Springfontein next week, Saturday, to do the other part. And I had two ladies, Wanda Lees and Bernie. She already completed 10 of these affidavits in the class in Havaga file, which will now be completed in this documentary. And it's going to be something, for people for the first time in 123 years to see the real truth of what happened. And Wanda, I really thank you and your husband for accommodating us, to read some of these stuff. You won't believe, Scott, some other people which I spoke today has also now come on board, to help and to assist. And obvious that will never be filmed, or showed at GayNet. Afrikaans people call it KateNet. I call them GayNet. Or any other Afrikaans television station.
Yeah.
But it's fine. We, the Boer folk, are strong.
Yeah.
We have done the journey so far, and we will carry on with the journey until the end of time.
Now, what I want to do now, Rudie, is just for everybody watching, please remember to like this video. Please remember to subscribe to this channel. Please register on lovinglifetv.com. What I'm going to do with this video is, because it is, I really see this as an epic discussion, and I've said hardly anything. I think the emotion and the comments that Rudie's made are incredibly important. So please share this video. But I'm going to actually break this video up into 2 parts because it's nearly 2 hours we've been talking. I'm going to keep what we've been saying now as one video, and what we're going to do now is we're going to look at a series of photos that Rudie has sent me, and I'm going to ask him to talk about them, and I will put that in as a separate video on lovinglifetv.com. Here on YouTube, it'll just remain one long, very long video, but it'll be broken up on lovinglifetv.com, so please register there. Okay. Yeah, Marius says Rudie should back his whole YouTube channel onto Loving Life TV. I would be happy to accommodate you with that, Rudie. If you wanted another home for your videos, we can give you admin access to put them up, and we can then, rather like with Wanda, we can put them up once a week. We can put up a separate video about the Boer War. We'll talk about that later. And guys, don't forget that on Loving Life TV, we also have this fantastic forum, which is basically managed by Nat Quinn, who does a great job. Now, Rudie, are you ready to talk about these photos?
Yes, Scott. I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
You know, I only do it by invitation. If people want to invite me to speak about the concentration camps, they're welcome to get hold of me or to contact me. And I'm also a speaker on the Day of the Vow. Last year was a privilege. That was my 11th year. And I don't speak reconciliation. And my other, I also ask, please don't put a pulpit there for me, because the lies of many preachers and politicians was spoken from a pulpit. So that's my only 2 conditions. I don't speak reconciliation, and I don't speak from a pulpit. So what's fascinating about this photo, as I said, if you look at the names of this photo and you go to the big cemetery, you will find more or less the same ages of children. So does it make sense to you that these children, I don't know if it's honestly them lying in that graveyard? I must also say, and I will never accuse any of those women that murdered any of those children. That is why those song Simbamba comes from. Because what woman in her right mind, if she was raped, want to bring this child, to be born, and then take this child and look after that child? I doubt it. And many of these women, I can feel, I can think emotionally, because of what happened to her now in that 3-year period, to go to they call them the fruit vrouw, the woman that helped, on the day of the birth, that she might have been told that you take this, this thing, and you get rid of it. I don't want to know if it's a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
I was raped. So that is why I say, maybe because of the emotional stuff and the bleeding and the assault that this woman had to endure. I'm sure, it happens today as well. They did not have, like today, you can go for an abortion. So maybe because of walking that distance with this, she was pregnant, etc., that this boy or a girl that were born, they were dead. So I'm sure what happened, this baby was then taken to some part of this concentration camp. And I'm sure because of compassion, that Sandrock had, he then took this child, and not knowing that this woman was raped, and then they were buried, as part of these 37 graves. So those names, I am not sure, maybe they just, on the one side, because of what happened to these women, not to give them, or to make the Boer folk, because of what happened to them, to somehow lighten this and say, because they can't speak for themselves. This was the babies that were born, and now accusing Sandrock. But the same ages, the same, 1 week or 2 days, you will find in the big cemetery at Springfontein as well.
Wow.
These names are there that's the other photo of the 37 graves. Although there's, I think there's only 22 of those concrete slabs there at Springfontein. If I am wrong, I have said I will then go publicly and say I've made a mistake. But until I don't get the facts or the proof that these babies are not of the women that were raped by the British, I will stay with my statement. That is why they were, not buried with the other children in the concentration camp cemetery.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the next photo.
That's the entrance before you go into the cemetery. That's with the names. Die Raad van Oorlogsgrafte. I'm sure, they built that just to lighten, the condition, or the British paid them to put up that memorial so that they don't look too bad. If they wanted to buy the women memorial, what do you think what would have happened? They would have get rid of all the evidence, like the glass in the mealie meal, the fish hooks in the bully beef. There's some photos. I was actually surprised, but the glass in the mealie meal, that wasn't there. Wow. Can you imagine, as a child, you haven't eaten for 3 days now, you ate a tin of bully beef, which is rubbed with fish hooks, and you get that into your stomach.
Oh no, that's shocking.
The terrible death that you had to die. And these professors say, no, the British did not mean. Of course, they were killers.
Yeah, now just while I'm thinking about it, you mentioned a museum in Cape Town, in the centre of Cape Town. It's number 23. I've just forgotten the street name. What is that?
Strand Street. STARAND, Strandstraat, Cape Town. That's the Marie Koopmans de Wet.
Yeah, that's where they've got the clothes for the people who are in the concentration camps.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Let's go to the next photo.
Yes.
So if you live in Cape Town, please, guys, go and have a look at that. It sounds... I would certainly do it if I was living in Cape Town, for sure.
Now this, a couple of years ago, I wanted to go film his grave, but there were so many ants. So when I took Ernest on an Anglo-Boer War tour, which I do, if there's groups that want to go on a tour like Blood River or Magersfontein, whatever, they welcome to contact me. I do tours like that as well. So this is the grave of the most famous Klasie Havenga. He was a minister in the Herzog regime, and he was the person that put the moratorium on these affidavits of the women that were raped and molested. So in Forest Smith, man, that graveyard looks terrible. Looks terrible. If I get money or donations or whatever, sponsorship, I will get our people and we go clean it up, but it looks terrible. Now you can imagine him being a Minister of Finance. And this is how you are remembered. Overgrown. Nobody goes there anymore. It's a terrible graveyard in Forest Smith. I cannot believe that the white people there in Forest Smith don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
That's the grave of Klasie Havenga.
Right. Now, tell us about this.
This is, the whole series of 55 of the concentration camps, which is in Afrikaans. This is the front cover, of each and every concentration camp. So each and every concentration camp, it tells you, it shows you black and white photos, what it looked like, how many women and children were in that camp, letters that were written by those women, the conditions of what they experienced, how many died there, and if you want to go visit this specific concentration camp, how to get there. So that was Bloemfontein.
Right.
It's all in Afrikaans. So there's, and we cannot blame the younger generation. I mean, I have 2 sons which are now in their 30s, and they have, like our grandchildren are now 10 years old. So they're busy, bringing up the kids, etc. But, you can at least show them this and explain to them, what happened. Because the Boer folk history is taken out of schools. And I had a question the other day, but what do we do about this? You must stand up. If you're just going to let it go, then, don't complain. Stand up for your right to be educated in your language and the truth about, the history. I've also been asked a question. Okay, so if England, which never asked, any apologies of the murders they committed in South Africa, and now they decide to do this, and they are now willing to give money. What will I do? I said on one condition, no, none of that money must go to any Afrikaans organization. None. I don't trust them. We can sit around the table. I will then use that money to go and clean up. I've been given photos of Meerbank in Natal, in Durban, close to Durban. And that was the biggest concentration camp. There were over 8,600 women and children in that camp. You must see the condition. It's terrible. That's why I say don't vote, because your vote won't count. Rather take, your time that you're going to spend in that queue. Don't believe the lies. Yeah, if you don't vote, it will go to the ANC. It's rubbish. Rather take your vote, that time that you will stand in that queue, and go clean up your erfenis, your
history,
your history, monuments, etc.
Yeah. Well, look,
I
think one of the most shocking things as a historian that I've seen is how really, really iconic museums in South Africa, which are now run by ANC cadres, are just being decimated. It is tragic. And probably the worst of the lot is the Kuruman mission, which is where Robert Moffat had his, and that's where Livingstone was. And it's now the curator is an African guy, and that place has gone to absolute rubbish. It is just shocking. Anyway,
you see, it also, it's got to do with education. It's no use just putting or giving a person a job and he doesn't understand it and you have no compassion about this. That is why I say, if I have to take groups around on a history tour, you will understand much more about the history and the concentration camps if you walk there and you look at the graves, and it's been told, like the Susan Nel tour. My next one will be the last, I think it's the 28th of October. In Winburg, there's accommodation, etc. They can just contact me, whoever wants to go. It's a experience like you won't believe. And I just wanted to tell you, Susan Nel last wish was, when she retired, that her ashes must be spread, by her friend that died in that camp.
Yeah.
And to stand there by a friend's grave, it's an emotional feeling that you can't explain what happened to her. And at the end, the ashes were, her mother and her father and her brother died in that concentration camp. Yeah, so the next tour, Susan Nel tour, will be the end of October.
Okay.
Klaasje Halmega. Yeah.
Now this one? No,
that's also Klaasje Halmega. I think that's his wife.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you to talk about this for a little while, because I just need to leave the computer for a second. So over to you.
Yes. Okay. Scott, Klaasje Halmega, I wonder what went through his mind after all these Boer women and children and their daughters had to come from afar, or after or during the concentration camp period, and now they have to give an affidavit in front of a strange person of what happened, how she was raped, on the farm. And even if she was raped on the farm, and now later she discovered, but now she's pregnant, and now she got to endure that time in the concentration camp every day, walking around with this unwanted baby, in your stomach. Emotionally, how does she feel? What goes through her mind? And now the other sad thing is also, during the start of this Anglo-Boer War, her husband, I'm just going to give him a nickname, Koos, he now goes out on commando. So, now she's raped, and maybe the child died at birth, and she was fortunate, and Koos was fortunate not to die, and now he gets back to the burned farm, and now they have to start all over. So now he goes to his wife. I mean, it's his rightful, I don't say duty, I don't have the right word now. Now he wants children. And now he's been, told by his wife, no, not tonight, or no, we can't, or I'm sick, or I don't feel well.
I'm back.
For Koos, not realizing that his wife was raped, and eventually, how can, for me, emotionally, if I was a woman and I was raped, now, you have to make love to the person that you loved before he had to go to war. What goes through your mind? Will you ever have, the relationship that you wanted to have before, this happens?
Well, God made marriage sacred, so it kind of breaks that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I wonder how many women, after it happened to them, committed suicide.
Yeah,
Drinking
absolutely.
poison, jumping off a cliff,
Yeah,
taking a gun, shoot herself, without her husband knowing of what happened to her.
yeah.
I was also asked, a question, what happened to those, the women that gave birth? Did they look after that boy or a girl? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never come across a book that things like that was written.
It was all
About,
put under the carpet, yeah. Okay, what's that? That's vryheid en
vir vryheid en reg.
reg.
So
Okay.
that is the entrance, to towards the baby's cemetery.
Right.
There
Is this
at
where the
front.
37 babies are?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay, let's go and have a look at the next photo.
That's just at the back of the cemetery.
Right, so it's the same one.
So it doesn't make sense to me, if there were 3,000 women and children in that concentration camp for Sandrock, to do his duties. He started a missionary there.
Yeah.
To attain to all these things, it's impossible. What did those 3 Afrikaans preachers do during that time? Why didn't they stand up or stood up against Sandrock? In many of these concentration camps, when women were given meat and it was rotten, they stood up against those British. For sure, they would have stood up against Sandrock by doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, think for yourself, if you have given birth to a baby and, the baby died, unfortunately, and now you've been told by your preacher or your pastor, oh, now he's going to hell.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, that's also, the series consists of 55 documentaries, which is on DVD, which can also be available with WeTransfer. So each and every, concentration camp documentary will have a cover like that with a name on, a little bit of information of their specific
now,
concentration camp.
Rudie, are these videos people can download free of charge and view them?
Unfortunately, I haven't done that. That is why, when they contact me via email or whatever, if they I then send them a list of 55
Right.
of concentration camps we did. And then they order what they want. They pay the money into my account, and then I send it to them.
Yeah.
They can either order the DVD or I send whatever they ordered via, we transfer to their email address, and then they just download it.
Yeah. And that's your phone number, 082-536-1917. They can contact
That's
you.
it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the next one.
That's Ernest, my Boer, inspector, which went with me on that tour, which I took him there at Springfontein. And, he had this book of Alria vessels that was donated by the Women's Memorial in Bloemfontein. And I had, I put the camera up there and I did a small, introduction and telling them how they lied. They say Alria lied, but why, if she lied so much with her master's degree in history, why do you give her a book to say thank you so much for your hard work at the Boer Memorial? Does it make sense? It doesn't.
No.
Oh, that's Klaas Yamaga, sorry.
That's the same one again. Yeah, okay.
The same, yes. That's also, you park in front of that monument, and then you walk through there, and then you get to the graves of the babies.
Right.
That's in Springfontein, yeah.
That's the same photo again?
That's another photo of the babies.
Of the graves, yeah.
So as I said, what I've now discovered, and if I'm not going to, I have been told that there are letters that the women wrote, how they got so upset with this Sandrock, for taking the baby away and telling them that he's now going to hell. If they don't show me any proof of that, then here is the truth about that memorial in Springfontein.
Right. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. That's
just from a different thing, for vryheid en reg.
Yeah.
For freedom and right. How can you say for freedom and right? That's not right.
Yeah.
What happened there, is the biggest sin I can ever think a man can commit against, a woman.
You know what they always say, Rudie? That the winners in the war always rewrite history to suit them.
That's right. That photo was taken when Emily Hophouse visited Springfontein. She walked around that concentration camp, and then there were this woman sitting there. Her child already died in her arms. There was no life in her eyes. So many photos that you see of the concentration camps, the British were so cruel. Many of those photos, they were given nice dresses and cups, saucers and plates. And then that photo was sent back to England and say, yeah, look how good we look after the women and children in the concentration camps. Yeah. If you look at their eyes, there's no life in those eyes. It's dead. That is dead. There was also a mother with 8 children in Springfontein. All 8 of her children died. So can you imagine? She lived. Now she had to go back to the farm, to nothing. The scorched earth policy. Now, where the rooms are and their toys and clothes and stuff, there's nothing. I don't blame women. If I would have gone crazy. There's one woman written in one of the books. She actually went berserk. She went crazy.
Now, just before I move to the next photo, I've got a large collection of books which talk about the Boer War, and one of them was written by Napier, and he's talking about the conditions in the concentration camps back then. Have you heard of his? It's not a big book. It's like I think it's about 50 pages or something like that. Have you heard of his book?
If I see the front cover of the book, I might recognize it because I also have a huge collection, of history books.
Yeah, because it was basically written from, I think, the British perspective with the concentration camps, and it's got like a soft cover. It hasn't got a picture on it. It's just like a brown cover, and it just says the Boer War, Napier. Now, what I would like to do with all these books which I've got, I'd like to donate them to a museum that, like the Voortrekker Museum, a museum that will actually look after them. What are you going to be doing with your books?
I have two, young grandsons.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I can send you a picture now. Last year when I spoke at the Day of the Vow, they were dressed like Boers.
Yeah.
And each had a rifle. And they walked in with me to the front.
Mm.
With their clothes, they're 10 years old. Man, can you imagine
what an entrance.
The proudness of me? And the one grandson, his name is Ian. And sometimes when people phone me and I talk about the history, and I put the phone down, Afrikaans, he always comes up to me and he said, "Oupa, was dit alweer daai bliksemse Britte gewees?"
Love it. By the way, guys, I'm just alerting you to the fact that tonight we're going out with Hier bly ek Boer at the end of this live stream. Just so Marius knows, I see he's here on the side. Okay, so let's move on to the next photo.
That's one. I don't know whoever put that, flower there on that grave. If I am right with all, my evidence, I wonder, what is going to happen if this truth unfolds that I am right, that it was all, a fake idea of misleading us, of the British spying, the Boer Memorial in Bloemfontein, because it's in their area, and to not to make them bad of what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know for how long, this truth will be in the archives. A very interesting thing about Celeste Reynolds, she said in her third year, when she got to the archives, now she already discovered 34,000 names. Many of the files all of a sudden just disappeared. She could not trace them.
Wow.
Isn't that, a clue of, that we must not know the truth of how many, were killed in this 141 concentration camps?
Yeah.
I was actually so surprised. Last night I looked at one of the videos of the War Memorial on YouTube, and this lady said, there were over 50,000 Boer women and children killed in the concentration camp. I said, from the Boer Memorial, that's a a new thing I never knew. I always say, that there were over 38,000 Boer women and children killed in these concentration camps. And now Celeste got to 34,000. And they still don't want to accept it. Why? I think of the staff as only tour guides. You only say what you must say. You say nothing else. We tell you what to say. If you don't do that, you will be without a job. I hope they listen tonight. My friend Ernest actually asked, one of the doctors there at the War Memorial, can Rudie please come and do an interview? And his email said, and this will be shown in this documentary, "Oh no, Rudie is too controversial."
What?
Controversial by telling the truth, or controversial by of what?
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, let's have a look at the next photo.
Now, there's 2 concentration camps in South Africa where you as a Boer citizen of the Boer folk, they don't have easy access. And the one is in Doringville, there by Orange River Station, because it's on private property. And the other one is in Brandfort in the Free State. The book I'm writing about the concentration camps, we went to film Brandfort, in December a couple of years ago, and it was overcast, etc. And unfortunately, I forgot to put the mic on, which worked with a battery.
Sorry, guys, we just lost the connection for a second.
Get money and go back. So that year, we went back in March. And are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Sorry, we just
Hello?
lost you for. Yep. Yeah, I'm here.
And I went back in March. So when I arrived there, there's also so much corruption at Brandfort concentration camp with the 100-year celebrations of the Anglo-Boer War, or this remembrance of the 100 years, Anglo-Boer War. So when we got there, the owner of the farm, his brother was on the farm, and I stopped there and I said, unfortunately, I forgot to put the microphone on. Can we please just do a rerun of the documentary? And he said to me, no, it's now past December, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, and I saw him that he was drunk. So I just took a wild guess. And I said, listen, if I buy you, 6 beers, can I have access? He says, no, buy me a bottle of Old Man Cherry. We went back to Brandfort to the bottle store. We bought him a bottle of Old Man Cherry. We got back, we gave it to him, and we could do our documentary, in Brandfort.
Wow.
There's only 2 concentration camps in South Africa that looks like what it looked like 123 years ago. This is Nylstroom, there in the Bushveld, northern Transvaal.
Yeah.
On occasion, the sad thing is right next to this concentration camp cemetery is the NG Kerk, a huge white church in Nylstroom. And on occasions, if I go past there and I see it's so overgrown and stuff there, and I look at the grass of the NG Kerk, nicely, neatly mowed, I can't help, to say the NG Kerk, what a story. Don't you want to know where you come from? Don't you have any respect of all these women and children that died, so that you can have freedom? So that's Nylstroom.
Now, look, there are a couple of little things I just want to pick up on here, because I've travelled around South Africa widely, and there are 2 graveyards that, to me, basically sum up a lot of what we're talking about tonight. And the one is actually a Pilgrim's Rest. I'm sure you've seen the graveyard there, where they've got the one grave called the Robber's Grave, which actually points the wrong way, so that he will never see the sunrise. And all the other graves are pointing a different way. And when you talk about the 37 graves of those young babies who died, that they almost sound like the robber's grave. They didn't want them anywhere. Well, they weren't treated the same way as everybody else who was buried.
That's right. If you go down to Pieterstein, which is on your way to Bethlehem, Clarence, there in the Eastern Free State, in the Southern Free State, there I discovered the grave, which was overgrown of General J.R. Olivier.
Yeah.
That graveyard is about an acre big. And there's a couple of graves. The normal, thing to bury people is from east to west. And in this graveyard, there's a lot of graves from north to south. So doing history now for 20 years, those are the graves of the joiners that was shot by the Boers.
Yeah.
Obvious, not giving them any credit, and that is why they were buried from north to south. Now, at Pilgrim's Rest, that's the same principle of that robber that is buried in that old cemetery.
Yeah. Now, the other graveyard that comes to mind, and this is rather ironic, it's at Mafeking, and it's behind a big shopping centre, and it's full of British soldiers who died during the siege of Mafeking and over that period. And the irony here is that rather like the way the Boer concentration camps have been treated, that graveyard is going to pot. Because it's near a shopping centre, I walked around it back in 2011, which is 12 years ago now. But when I went there in 2006, it was beautifully maintained. But in 2011, it was covered in plastic bags. Covered in plastic bags. And, the graves, some of the graves were still maintained nicely. I guess they've got a budget that they put through from the War Museum or the War whatever in the UK to maintain the old British graves. But they were going to pot as well. In fact, some of the little things that they had on top of the graves had disappeared, and you could just see it was just going backward at 100 miles per hour. So I think British descendants of the people who are buried at Mafeking would be rather perturbed about that.
That is why the main cemetery, the very first concentration camp that was erected in South Africa was Mafeking.
Yeah.
And over 4,000 Boer women and children died in those 3 concentration camps. So that is where we discovered Magogwe. Now, 800 meters from the main cemetery, you will find 240 graves. So one night, a couple of years ago, I was by accident, looking at the news. And here comes the Erfenis Stichting, the Heritage Foundation. And now they have discovered the so-called black concentration camp. And man, maybe people will know when Pietskiet Rudolph, he passed away, but then my phone rang and it was him. And I thought, yes, this is a surprise. And he said to me, am I watching news? I said, yes. He said, but did you see that you are now busy with these concentration camps? So a good friend of mine who was in the Iraqis, Dave Christie from Durban, when Piet phoned him, and he flew from Durban down to Lanseria, so we went all the way down to Mafeking. And when we got to Mafeking, now we started to see if we can find the cemetery. And eventually I found the Voortrekker.
It's not easy to find.
I beg your pardon?
It's not easy to find.
Not easy to find. So what happened is those 240 graves of the women and children and men that did not want to fight the British. So they were in the main concentration camps, and they were told, listen, if you die, you're not going to be buried with us because we see you as traitors. And that is why they were buried 800 meters from there.
Yeah.
So the Heritage Foundation took a chance and say, listen, now we have discovered a black concentration camp. Because what happened after the war, the black folk, the Baralong was the first, black tribe that the British actually contacted and convinced fight with us against the Boers.
That was at Mafeking.
Yeah, Mafeking.
Yeah.
You can take a white woman who will give you a farm, and we will pay you and we'll give you food. So after the war, they moved back, and this cemetery was sort of like neglected, and it was not, easy accessible. So we went there, and then we saw a statue in Afrikaans with words called Tere Bloeisels. It's a poem, I think, written by A.G. Visser, and we saw graves in Dutch in the writing was, and the surnames was Woolman. So we looked
Yeah.
at one another and say there's something fishy about this. So the Heritage Foundation with the University of Pretoria already removed 22 graves.
Wow.
So they were taken back to the University of Pretoria. Now they wanted to check the DNA of those bones. So we went and we made an appointment to see the Baralong Koning, the chief of Baralong.
Yeah, I've met him.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, we met him and he said, he has warned them not to exhume those graves, but they went ahead and they did this. It actually ended up that Dave Christie made a court case with a friend of him against the Heritage Foundation for removing those bones because it belongs to the Boer folk, irrespective if they were joiners.
Yeah.
Now, for us, it's easy to speak about joiners, but that must have been the hardest, decision that you have made. If I'm going to fight with the Boers, I'm going to lose my family and my farm.
Yeah.
If I don't, well, I have my family and my farm.
Yeah.
At the end, we had a meeting, and the Heritage Foundation, under the leadership of Cecilia Creer, arrived there at that meeting. So I wanted to film this meeting, but I was then asked not to do this. And Scott, this was an emotional journey for me.
Mm.
I was sitting next to the Baralong Koning, and then what Cecilia Creer of the Heritage Foundation said? Oh no, they can't check the DNA of the bones anymore because it's too expensive exercise. And I stood up and I just burst out in tears and I said, the British came here to murder my people. Your organization just did exactly the same.
Mm.
Those bones were in black crates put at a what you call it, where you keep your coffins and stuff, a funeral home.
Yeah.
5 years.
Funeral parlor.
For 5 years. It was lying here in Centurion.
Mm.
So many people know so little about these Afrikaner organizations, which I don't trust.
Yeah.
So eventually, the University of Pretoria and the Heritage Foundation now wanted it down to stand or be father for what they did. So the SARA, which is now a government organization that supposed to look after cemeteries and stuff, they had to pay out of their pockets. They had to make, those very cheap coffins. I filmed this on the day when I was so fortunate to rebury some of those women and children that were exhumed. They wanted the ANC to believe that they have now discovered a black concentration camp. If we weren't there, they would have made a killing financially out of, proving now they have got, a black concentration camp.
The ANC would have thrown money at them.
Yes. We reburied 22 women and children in this Mafofwe, cemetery there at Mafeking.
Yeah. Wow. Now, okay, just hang on a second. I'm just waiting for something to happen. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Now, just on that point, Marius has said, what about wagon wheels in Ladysmith? I've been around there. That's that hill that overlooks Ladysmith, where the Boers came up the hill and they attacked the British.
Yeah.
And there were...
Yeah,
go ahead.
There was also a cemetery. But, years to come, sometimes the women in the camps didn't, jobs were created in some of these concentration camp cemeteries, for erecting a tombstone, etc. But many times women didn't have money to erect a tombstone. So obvious, it was just a grave with sand.
Yeah.
So with the rain and, the normal things that happen in a graveyard, graves are washed away. So I was there. I made a documentary about Ladysmith. We went to the site. It was actually now a rugby grounds. But we couldn't find any graves, in the cemetery in Ladysmith.
Yeah.
If there are people that are looking, and if they can go, to the old cemetery, maybe if they find anything, to let me know. I can always add on, to that documentary. But I had an old person there that showed us all the places where the women and children, walked and where they stayed and in part of the cemetery. But what's interesting during the Battle of Ladysmith, the Boers, it's now Christmas Day, so they had sort of a treaty not to fight. So the Boers took a bomb and they dismantled, the fuse in the front. So they write on that bomb, Merry Christmas, and they shot it from the hill.
Yeah. And they took out the town hall as well, the clock tower of the town hall. And very close to Ladysmith, there's a little place called, there's a little motel there, I think, and it's called Fort Mistake. And if you have you been up into that little fort on the hill?
No, I haven't, but I've been to Spioenkop, which is also not far from there.
Yeah, but I just want to before we talk about Spioenkop, I just want to get back to Fort Mistake. I'll have to send you some photos. I've got some great photos. I actually walked up. I saw about 3 snakes on the way, just for the record. I mean, it was long grass, and I thought, shit, this is like Snake Alley. It was just crazy with snakes. But I walked up, and I walked inside, and this fort was literally the size of a small kitchen inside. But they had multi-levels of where you would have soldiers standing at a low level, and then soldiers standing at a higher level, and they had the little holes where they would put their guns and shoot out of. And I think the story behind Fort Mistake was that it never saw any action because it was in the wrong place. Do you have any information about Fort Mistake?
I might have in some of my history books, but I didn't. I think we haven't had enough time, to go there.
Yeah.
Although on the one side on the hill they have a huge monument there with the names, of some of the soldiers, or the men that died there.
Yeah.
In that statue. I don't know why they've made it such a a funny type of model. I couldn't understand.
It's like a big chimney.
Yeah.
It's all made out of stones. They just pile these stones up on top of each other. But it's actually quite clever, the construction inside. It had one little area you came into it. Yeah. Now,
it's like the Huguenot Memorial there in the Parel. Why they've made it like that, I just cannot understand.
Yeah. Look, I will send you some photos of Fort Mistake after the live stream. Now, the other one we need to talk about is Spioenkop. Okay, now Spioenkop, of course, is where the British came up in the middle of the night. The Boers scattered. They ran away. They shot the Boer sentry while they were climbing up, and that, of course, alerted all the Boers to get off there. And the British parked themselves on top of this high, flat hill, not realizing that there were 3 or 4 hills in quite close proximity, which allowed... It was like a killing ground, because the Spioenkop hill is so flat that they had nowhere to hide, and they tried to create these little rock barriers, but they couldn't because there was not enough rocks to do that. And about 400 or 350 British were killed that day, and then they. This is the crazy part. I mean, I've never heard of this happening in war before. The British vacated the hill, and the Boers vacated the hill because they both thought that the other had taken over. And so the hill was empty with all these dead bodies on that night. Yeah. Do you want to just put your story behind that?
The big problem there was fog.
Yes. Yes. The British were freaked out when the fog lifted.
Yeah, they could not see one another. And then as the fog lifted, now here's the enemy, and they started to shoot. What's very interesting there is, fortunate you can drive up with your vehicle right close to, that mass grave there.
Oh, it's huge.
And it's huge. And what's nice about it, there's a cable. You walk with the cable, and there's some writing, here on this spot, this happened, and then...
Rudie, I have to interrupt. Because when I was there in 2011, a lot of that cable had been stolen. I mean, I saw it in 2006. I know the cable. It's like a thick steel cable that you follow. It's
Yeah.
on the ground.
Yeah.
But on the Ladysmith side, where the guy was shot by the British, on that side, all that cable has been stolen. It's gone.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we haven't had passenger trains for the past 5 years because everything here in Winburg is stolen. They can't drive. They just, yeah.
Yeah.
But now and again I take tours down to Dundee,
Yeah.
Island, Anna, Rocks Drift. That's also an area, if you look at it, what's fascinating, the Day of the Vow, which happened in 1838. 64 years later, the Battle of Isla Luana happened. So you can imagine the advancement of weapons, 64 years later.
Yeah.
And that afternoon, with all the weaponry the British had, they could not win. The Zulus there, and they got killed and smashed.
Yeah.
So they went looking for them, and after 3 months, when they got there, it was all rotten and just bones and heads and stuff lying all over the show. So there's a lot of statues made in that area. But people living in Dundee, or if you ever go to Dundee, please go visit the Lana Museum. That's really a place where you really can enjoy a museum facility which have so many information, etc.
Yeah. Now, let's move on to the next photo. We kind of got distracted there. Okay, so that's the graves again.
That's also the graves, yes.
Yeah. That's again the same front.
That's the front, yes.
Yeah, we've seen that before.
The names.
I think we covered them all. Yeah, we've done them.
Yeah. That's also Klaasie Halmenga.
Yeah, yeah.
But I hope if there are people living in the Forrie Smith area, man, that cemetery is in a terrible state. If I get, a sponsorship, I will ask, my fellow, veterans, and we'll go there because those trees need to be pruned desperately. It's terrible. And just standing there by Klaasie Halmenga, I wonder in his right mind, when he was told, now you put a moratorium on these, nobody's got to see this for 50 years. What went through his mind? Those women sitting there with all the emotions, now telling their story to a totally, person that they don't know and never met. I mean, the courage that it took for those women to tell their stories. I don't know, it's only by God's grace, that, that they had the courage to go and do that. And nothing happened to the British because of this. Nothing.
Yeah. Now look, it's shocking what took place, and it's a real indictment on British royalty actually, and of course they're being beholden to the Rothschild family, who were clearly behind the Boer War. There's no question about that.
And it only, the conclusion is because of their greed. When diamonds and gold were discovered here, because they were bankrupt. If you go to YouTube and you watch, Britain here in the 1900s, the slums, they weren't soldiers. They were just given a gun and a uniform and said, okay, we'll pay you a salary. So you can imagine when they arrived in Cape Town, 450,000 against a Boer force of 60,000. And because they could not win the Boers on the battlefield, they changed totally to barbarism.
Yeah, that was Lord Milner, wasn't it, who did that?
Yeah, Milner, Kitchener and Roberts. They were the two biggest British murderers of these women and children. If you go here to Terfontein, I did a documentary about Terfontein concentration camp. Those women that were in that camp, if a baby or an adult died, they had to walk 6 kilometers with that body to Mondior to go bury that child. So can you imagine a mother carrying a 2-year-old baby 6 kilometers?
Oh, no.
What goes through her mind?
That's shocking.
And now she's carrying that baby to that grave, realizing once she put the baby in the grave, she got to walk back alone. What goes through that woman's mind?
Yeah.
A very interesting question I've asked at Doringbold. There was an educated lady, and I asked her, because what happened, with the Boers, with the women and children in these concentration camps, generations after this, illnesses that we battle today with, like sugar diabetes, or your eyesight, or you frightened, what you call heart attacks and stuff, that had an influence because of what happened and what they had to endure in these concentration camps. And she said to me, "You're dead right."
Yeah. Rudie,
and yes, Scott.
No, go ahead, please.
And the rapes that occurred with young Boer girls in the Irene concentration camp is just as shocking as what happened, in this Klasie Halmenga, report. I mean, some of those girls were 8, 9 years old. They were rented out to the British officers in Irene. So can you imagine, what they had to endure? I mean, if 11 British soldiers raped that girl in Colenso, what happened to that were children? And if they were starving, okay, I'll give you a bread in return of your services. There's so many stories that were untold that we only now. I'm so fortunate, and I will take my hat off, by standing at the Boer Memorial to say to all these women and children, we haven't forgotten them. It took many years, to bring, the truth out to our people, but the truth will set you free.
Now, it's interesting that, we talk about history's been destroyed in South Africa with the museums and what's going on. And I think the presidential house in Bloemfontein is a very good example of how things have been destroyed. I don't know if you've seen it, Rudie, but there's now a black curator, and a lot of the display cabinets, when you walk in and those sort of areas, they're empty. You can see the old where they used to have something on it, but it's been taken. It's stolen, and it's so sad to see that happen to history. And I think one of the shining lights in Bloemfontein to me is the original Raadsaal, which is still maintained by white curators. Well, it was in 2011, and it was in absolutely in a beautiful condition. The thatch roof of the Raadsaal, everything about it was just absolutely immaculate. And go ahead.
When I took Ernest on that journey, to go show him, what happened with the Boer prisoners of war at Clarence, then Free State, at Surrender Hill, etc. He had a friend in Bloemfontein that took us to the concentration camp site, which is close to the army base. And if you go there and just imagine, and I've seen many photos of Bloemfontein concentration camps, and they call it the Dam van Trane.
The River of Tears.
And you stand there and you realize, what happened here. I mean, if you, I've never seen a ghost, but I have filmed the Norwals Pond, which is close to the Gariep Dam, a couple of years ago, and my wife we went there during the winter time, and I took a thermometer with me just to show on camera how cold it is, and that morning it was -5 degrees.
Wow.
So I wanted to go, where they held the church services on a Sunday, but I couldn't climb over those doringdraad, those barbed wire. if you want to be sorry, you got to go.
You've got to be very careful how you climb over barbed wire, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the winter time. If that wire snaps, then you've
you
had.
know
But
all
anyway,
about it.
so I wanted, to go and film where they normally had their church service because I
Yeah.
had a photo, and there was a gate there, but I couldn't get a farm gate. I couldn't get entrance because it was locked.
Mm.
So while I was trying to get the attention of one of the farm workers that had cattle there, he just ignored me. I heard a motor, stop behind us.
Mm.
And I turned around, and here's this German farmer, and he was very friendly. And I told him, I don't know what he thought. I said, I'm doing this serious documentary about the concentration camps.
Yeah.
So obviously being German, I wonder what he thought about their concentration camps. And he said to me, no problem. And he unlocked the gate, and he said, please take your time. You're most welcome. Drive around, film.
Oh,
And
lovely.
then finish, come have coffee with us. So he
Yeah.
explained to us where to go there.
Yeah.
So as we drove in where the actual tents was, I got out of the vehicle, and my wife worked. And after a while, she said, so she's getting too cold. So she went back to the bakkie. And in my eyes, I saw, I had a very strange feeling of these women walking on these with barefoot
Yeah.
on these during the winter time, when it was all, what do they call it, kapok, like snow in this area.
Frost.
Frost. So I took out the thermometer and I showed it's now -5 degrees. Can you imagine what they
Yeah.
had to go through? So I had a very strange feeling like this place is alive.
Yeah.
So after that, I packed up the camera, and so we drove back. The old railway bridge is now the motor bridge.
Mm.
And he said he just stays next to that. So we took a drive, and as we went down to the Orange River, I saw a British fort there.
Mm.
And I saw a house on the right-hand side. So I drove closer to this, and I looked at the British fort, and I saw, but it's got windows. And I was so surprised. And I see, but there's a woman in there. So we got out of the car, and we got into this British fort. Can you believe it? This was their house when they bought this farm. So it's like 8 corners. So the bottom of the fort is their kitchen.
Yeah.
And then you go up the stairs to the middle of the fort. That is where the children's rooms was. And then you go to the top of the fort. That is where their main bedroom was. So in the middle of the fort, they had a beautiful fireplace with a brass chimney from the bottom right through, the roof. So if you make fire here at the bottom, it heats up the whole British fort. So that was their home. Unfortunately, I was so, today I'm very sorry I didn't film that, but that was, something to see.
Yeah. When I was in South Africa in 2011, I went to a place called De Oude Kraal. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, it's close to Bloem. It's just south of Bloemfontein. Most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. But they've got one of the old forts, the British forts, very close to De Oude Kraal.
Yes.
Which they used to have near the railway lines, and that's where they used to control things, and it was still in absolutely immaculate condition. You could walk up the steps to the second level and all that sort of stuff. It was quite extraordinary.
Yeah, the guy that wrote this book, Blackie de Swart, 963 Days at the Junction.
Yeah.
They stay on a farm there in Springfontein. So I'm going to do an interview, regarding these graves as well. Because if it doesn't make sense to him, I will explain to him that maybe we have uncovered the truth about those graves.
Yeah, yeah.
And they also have a British fort on their farm. So if we have time, we'll go there, and obviously we will film that. But slowly but surely we will work our way down to Cape Town, and then Vandalius, she is going to read some of these affidavits. For us, that will be the second part of this documentary about the molestation and the rapes of these Boer women.
Well, I would
Yeah.
I'd love to see those. And when you meet Wanda, give her a hug from me because she's a lovely lady, and she's
Yes.
got the most beautiful speaking voice. I mean, I listened to
Yeah.
her voice tapes that she sends, and um, the interesting that last year they came out and said that the sexiest language in the world today is Afrikaans. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, that they say the sexiest language in the world today is Afrikaans, and of course the French went ballistic because it's normally French, and but you listen to Wanda speaking, and it's you can, if you understand Afrikaans, it is just so beautifully read. It is a real talent.
The thing is also, um, I'm very blessed for Bernie. She already, read, 10 of these
Yeah.
affidavits. And and Vanda also, they have that emotion in their voice,
Yes.
to speak so that you can feel what this woman had to endure
Exactly.
during her ordeal on the farm
Yeah.
when she was raped. And now I have to put, music in as well.
Mm.
So I'm sure a lot of people, when they see, this documentary, they must get their handkerchief with.
I think there
That's
were a
good.
few tissues being used tonight. Believe me. Now, talking about that, Rudy. Look,
Yeah.
we've been going for nearly 3 hours, and you've obviously got to get some sleep, and your wife is probably saying, "Rudy, are you still talking?" So,
No, see, I've called her this morning. I normally go make coffee for us,
Yeah.
and I called her. I just had it in my heart to say I'm dedicating this series for you for 34 years, being with me, to most of these places, to sit
Yeah.
with me at night when I was busy editing this. And I have cried many, many tears by doing these documentaries about the concentration camps, because having now grandchildren, when you have kids, you appreciate it and you look after them. But grandkids are something special. And I mean, if I look at my grandsons, when they participate at the day of the vow,
Yeah.
I can just thank God. And I thank God for you as well, Scott. You are blessed. You really keeping this, for us, for people that also want to know the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, we're living in really bad times now in South Africa. We don't know if a civil war is not going to take place next year. Then my name is not Rudie Rousseau. I mean, being a military veteran, looking at all the things that are now taking place, it is sad. But on many occasions, at the day of the vow, I say what the Bible says. Even if 10,000 is on your left-hand side and 10,000 on your right-hand side, don't be afraid, I will with them. And the only thing is, how the Boer folk is going to make this is to get back to the day of the vow. We did not make a vow with our friends. We made the vow with the Creator, of heaven and earth. And the sad thing is also, when you stand in front of these people and you look into their faces and you can see, the anxiety, the worries that they have. You have to give them something to cling on and to say, if no matter how hard it was for these women and children in these concentration camps, if they did not have God on their side, they wouldn't have survived. I did that documentary of Heilbron, and part of this book told about, this woman and her daughter, when they got home, they did not know where's their husband. And the burnt-out station, structure was standing there at Heilbron. And I tried to explain with the camera, this woman, they had a small place in the kitchen called the Spence, where they used to keep canned fruit and all their jams and mealie meal and stuff. But the whole farmhouse was burned down.
Wow.
But there was a piece of floor, wooden floor still left. And in this floor was a corn, a piece of corn. And she took, some metal thing that was lying there, and she scratched it out between the two floors. And she walked out of this house, and in the front of the house, she kneeled down, and she made a little hole, and she put that corn in there, and she started to cry. And that tears of her, wet that corn seed. Now, me and you can't make that corn seed, to raise. Only God can do that.
Yeah.
And if she had that faith in her that she believed her tears will make this corn grow, I mean, that's a story to tell.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, I should let everybody know that normally I get sort of like talking points before I do a live stream, but with Rudie, I really don't have to. I mean, I just sit and listen because Rudie has got so many stories to tell, and he's told us a bunch tonight. And Rudie, you are an extraordinary narrator, someone who can just get out there. I mean, I would love to be sitting out in the middle of the Highveld somewhere, out in the bush, around a barbecue, listening to you talk while we eat, the braai. I think that would be, and that's what you do, isn't it? I mean, people can go onto your little tours and they sit down and you talk away about old days in South Africa and stuff like that. I mean, that to me would be an absolute treasure. It would be a real life-changing moment.
Scott, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Sometimes it's difficult for me, not to cry, because if when you put yourself in that position, I mean, the day when we did that Susan Nel tour,
yeah,
the first time, so many people always wondered. Some of them have read this book, and to go there, to walk there, to tell her story. And the day when I read that book and I saw that Marie Koopmans de Wet saw this young girl, and I did not understand, a couple of years ago, I have filmed, the Marie Koopmans de Wet Museum in Cape Town, never thinking of, that I will be fortunate to tell the story of Susan Nel. And obviously it's an emotional story. And I mean, to keep your tears, if you stand there and you look at the young girl sitting there, and people that you will only now maybe see now, but you will never ever see them again, and give them something when they walk away, to remember.
Yeah.
I am passionate. Yeah, it's understandable. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's understandable. And like, if you get an invitation to go speak at the Day of the Vow, I do it differently. I got the other Bowser, and I buy some crackers. And then before I start with the sermon, I get the youngster, even if it's a boy or a girl, and I say, without them knowing, I've put the cracker in front, right here in front of the rifle. Just want to show you. I've got like a silencer here. Okay. So I put the cracker there with some press stick. So the rifle is heavy because it's a real rifle, but it doesn't shoot anymore. And now they got to hold this now. And without them knowing it, I take a lighter and I light the cracker. And I said, all right, now, we got to shoot. Immediately, everybody's attention.
Exactly.
And then, try to explain to them that
Yeah.
to have children at the day of the vow is so important because they are the future.
Yeah.
So they must really get more children on the day of the vow to attend and to participate on the day of the vow.
Yeah.
Because I can remember as a youngster when we went with my parents to the day of the vow, sitting there, you get so bored. You don't listen to what this guy is saying. When I spoke at Parakral about 4 or 5 years ago, I took my boys the Bible, the children's Bible book with, and I walked there and I explained to them what the Israelites went through out of a simple children's Bible book. You see, people make things so difficult.
Yeah.
So many preachers make things so difficult. They try to be so correct. But with simple things, you can give a wonderful message.
Yeah.
And as you stand there, I mean, there were 2,000-3,000 people. What a privilege to tell them, to read them out of a simple book like this, made for children, to explain to them the Boer folk is just like the Israelites, where they were under the influence of Herodes.
Yeah.
When they got to see the miracle that happened when Moses took his staff, his rod, and he touched the sea, and the sea
Parted.
opened up.
Yeah.
And now you can imagine walking through on dry land.
Yeah.
And you see these fishes and whales and crabs and octopuses and stuff. It must have been something out of this world. People
they've actually identified the spot where that happened. They've actually, they've identified it. There are quite a few YouTube videos about it where that they found wagon wheels and stuff like that, Roman wagon wheels, underneath the river.
My word.
Yeah, well, underneath that sea or whatever it was, but and it's actually the bit of land that they walked across is apparently much higher than the rest of the bed, and
yes.
There's this little piece that is higher, and after they walked across, of course, then the sea or the water came back and swallowed up the Egyptians who were trying to come over, and they were gone. But apparently they've actually located that spot, and they found wagon wheels and bits of human remains and stuff like that underneath that water. Incredible. Now, I'm going to wrap this up, but I have one final suggestion that's just come through this little head of mine, and that is, I'm going to be closing off this live stream with a song called Hier Bly Ek Boer. Now, you've probably never heard this song. Have you heard this song before? Okay. I'm going to send you a link after this live stream, and if you like this song, I know the composer of the song very well, Winston Coetzee. Lovely guy. He lives in Amanzimtoti area in KZN, but he's got a magnificent voice. And Hier Bly Ek Boer is basically a song about a farmer saying, "This is my farm. I'm staying here. No one's going to take me off my land." It's a fabulous song. It's all in Afrikaans, and I think as something maybe you can incorporate into your documentary that you're going to produce, because
I would love to.
Yeah, well, look,
I would. Would you please, if Vincent is looking at this program,
yeah,
and he stays in Amanzimtoti, which is not far from Meerbank.
Yeah,
Meerbank is in a terrible state. I've put it on my Facebook, page, and I've asked people, please, go clean it up. I mean, 8,600 women and children were in that camp. I can't remember the amount that passed away there. But please, if you can, go help or, promote it and ask, people for help that got garden services and stuff.
Yeah.
Just to go clean it up.
No, fantastic. All right, so look, I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you some photos of Fort Mistake.
Yes, please.
And I'm going to send you that song. I'll send you the link. I've got it up on YouTube. But if you'd like to incorporate that into your documentary, and I think it would fit perfectly, just let me know, and I will contact Winston and get his approval for that.
Please, I'll give him credit.
Okay.
And if he's in Roodepoort or whatever, if he wants me to come and film him while he's doing this, maybe at a different place of history, I'll really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problems. Consider it done. Alrighty. Rudie, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say just in wrapping up this 3-hour-long live stream?
Yeah, when I get an invitation to go speak about the concentration camps, I always say, please excuse me, because it's 7. You have to compile in 1 hour.
Yeah.
Which is, you can't remember something.
You can't put a time restriction on something like this when it comes to real history.
Yeah, especially also, we went to clean up Rudewal, which is in the Western Transvaal. 40 Boer were shot dead there. It was in a terrible state. So, after we've cleaned it up, we only have 1 day. We slept there next to the graveyard.
Yeah.
Obviously, making a big fire. We had a barbecue there, and the rest of the guys just sitting there, and you can hear the jackal. And I've never seen a firefly in years, and I saw a firefly. And I said, God, you are amazing.
Yeah.
To see a firefly, to have it in your hand, to see this light at the back.
I love fireflies.
My small group, or our small group of rebella, military veterans, can just do this for what they did for us. We can't run a 2,4, now in 2 minutes anymore, but we try, to clean it up. And afterwards, if you look at what it looked like, please, people must go look at my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
If you want anything, I will send it to you. There's many things that about our heritage and stuff, which is on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, look,
people want to get hold of me.
What I'll do is I'll put your phone number below the video in the description, so people who watch the video can just the phone number's there, so they can contact you.
They're always happy after they're always if they want to come and have a cup of coffee here in the Roodepoort, then they must just please let me know. Our door is always open. You might
have to open a cafe after saying that.
Especially sleeping next to a cemetery, the next morning you gotta go and fire up that coal, and then you put the kettle on, and you sit there, the quietness there,
and watch the sunrise. Oh, beautiful.
What the Boers thought of, will I see, the setting of the sun this afternoon, because we're going into battle. What they thought of, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I need more hands for people to come and participate, especially bring your kids with. Let them take a broom or a brush, paint the small gate, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But Scott, thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you for this wonderful program. And, that people must support you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
From an honest Boer's heart.
Thank you, Rudie. Look, we love having you on, and I look forward to our next chat. And look, I'm gonna put you in direct touch with Nat Quinn. I don't know if have you been in touch with Nat Quinn in the past? Okay, she looks after our forum, and she does an amazing job. And she does actually put links to your videos. She's got a section for Rudie Rousseau on there. So if you've noticed that your traffic has increased a bit, it's probably because of the forum that we've got here on lovinglivetv.com.
Scott, thank you so much. I just want to say I received an invitation to go to America, to a place called Tampa. We have free accommodation. They want me to go and speak at the Day of the Vow, because in that area there's over 700 South Africans staying there. But I don't have the funds to go there. I believe it's about 28,000 rand per person. It's return to go there. I've also met a person that was also a military veteran in South Africa that's flying, Boeings there in that area. So he's willing to pick us up.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
if we can get a sponsor, I would love to go speak to those South Africans,
Yeah.
tell them the real truth about, the day of the vow. But thank you so much. If God wants me to go there, He will provide.
Absolutely. Rudie, thank you. And-
God bless you.
And I'm going to wrap up this live stream with Hier bly ek Boer, which is
Baie dankie.
I will send you the link so you can hear it after I wrap up this live stream. But it's a beautiful, beautiful song. So stick around for about 10 minutes, and I'll send you the link, and you can listen to how we wrapped up this live stream.
Thank you so much, God.
Okay, take care, mate. Bye for now.
Okay, stay safe. Bye.
All right, guys, that was Rudie Rousseau, and wow, there are people who can just, they just engage you when they talk, and Rudie just sums it up. I love talking to Rudie. Okay, I'm going to go out with Hier bly ek Boer. I know Marius is going to love this, as you'll see where you can actually go and listen to the song, Hier bly ek Boer. Here it comes. Take care, guys, and don't forget, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, we will be having another live stream, and I'm just fighting with my cursor at the moment, but it's now suddenly come to life again. Alrighty, take care, guys. It's been a long one, but this will be broken into 2 parts on Loving Life TV. Here on YouTube, it'll just be one huge live stream. Night, guys. Bye for now. See you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Johannesburg time.
Meer as 61,000 van ons voorvaders het op die grens vir ons gesterwe, sodat ons vry kan wees. Die is my land, die is my reg. Hier is ek boer. Van stof is ek gemaak en sal ek terugkeer. Die Bybel is die woord waaruit ek leer, soos die grond op die aarde. Hier bly ek boer. So diep in die nag sal die vyand kom, maar hier bly ek staan en ek draai nie om, want jy maak my nie bang nie. Hier bly ek boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders lê. Die is my land, waar wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voel. Hier bly ek boer. Blaasom in die somer wat vreugde bring. My oupa wat maniekie kon sing, soos hy stap deur die lande. Hier was hy boer. My wortels lê diep in die grond geplant. Hy sien soos my pa los ek vir jou die land, en jy hoef nie te vrees nie. Hier sal jy boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders lê. Die is my land waar wat ek jou sê. Die is my land wat my mense voel. Hier bly ek boer. Die leeu sal kom, 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 die leeu sal kom. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal